There are 4 great Dōjutsus: the Sharingan, the Byakugan, the Rinnegan, and the Saishugan. There are several other Dōjutsus that are random offshoots of the originals, but none of them can truly compare to the original 4. For each of the original 4 have a second stage, the second stage being the double-edged sword. The 4 great Dōjutsus, however powerful, are also incapable of blending. No 2 Dōjutsus can create a more powerful hybrid. For when a Dōjutsu activates, it becomes a permanent part of them and will be passed onto their offspring. The other Dōjutsu will remain in the genetic code. But if you activate one Dōjutsu, you cannot activate the others, even if they are in your genetic code. Each Dōjutsu has a strength and power that rivals the others. The Sharingan Dōjutsu of the Uchiha clan, capable of copying any ninjutsu, genjutsu, or taijutsu, predicting movements before they happen, being able to hypnotize one's opponent through mere eye contact, a limited ability to see various chakra types through colors. But its greatest strength lies in its second stage, where it gains its 4 Hijitsu. The Manjikyu Sharingan Eye, the epitome of the Sharingan cycle, capable of using the black flames of Amaterasu, the eternal illusion Tsukuyomi, the unstoppable warrior Susanoo, and the raging vortex Kamui. But to gain the Manjikyu Sharingan, you must kill the one that means the most to you, whether it is your friend, sibling, parent, or lover. But when you gain the Manjikyu, its power will not last forever. Gaining the Manjikyu causes the user to slowly go blind. Using the Manjikyu even once will accelerate the process. The only one to ever find a way around this was Madara Uchiha. So desperate to keep the power of his almighty eyes, he murdered his younger brother and placed his brother's eyes in his own. His power remained, but he never went blind again, becoming the first Uchiha immortal. The Byakugan Dōjutsu of the Hyuga clan, capable of seeing chakra in all of its forms at a much higher level than the Sharingan, seeing things at a telescopic vision, seeing through solid objects, and seeing around oneself at a near full 360 degrees. Like the Sharingan, the Byakugan's greatest strength lies in its second stage. The Reikon Byakugan, the epitome of the Byakugan cycle, capable of using the heavenly archangel, the punishing penance, and the hellish wrath. But to obtain the Reikon Byakugan, you must watch as the one closest to you dies. No matter whom it is, you must watch as the life leaves their eyes forever. Controlling the Reikon Byakugan is a difficult endeavor. Your personality becomes split into 4, the original personality, the heavenly personality, the punishing personality, and the hellish personality. Allowing any of them to gain control outside of one's consent would force the original personality to forever wander purgatory. But using the eye slowly causes the 4 personalities to become one, but becoming one causes the personalities to die and never be allowed to be reincarnated. The only way to avoid this is to defeat all 3 of the new personalities in one's own mind. Only one has ever achieved this. Her name was lost to history, but she did not want the Hyuga clan to ever control this power. She made sure that all future generations of Hyuga were cold and detached to prevent them from ever being close to anyone. The Rinnegan Dōjutsu of the Uzumaki clan, capable of using all of the elements, causing a corpse to be able to move again under the identity of the Rinnegan user, and allows one to create the 6 paths of Preta, Naraka, human, Deva, Asura, and animal. Each path having his or her, depends on the body that the Rinnegan user uses for those paths' own specialty, can also turn deceased animals into a form of summon. The deceased animal will change and warp to become a better tool for what it was intended for. Like all of the 4 great Dōjutsus, the Rinnegan has a more powerful second stage. The Akuma Rinnegan, the epitome of the Rinnegan cycle, capable of using the sub-elements including Hyaton, Mokuton, and Yoton, as well as all the other sub-elements. One can also actually place the original soul of someone and bring them back to life, whether it be in their old body or a new one. To obtain the Akuma Rinnegan, you must kill the person who despise the most, no matter who it is. The Akuma Rinnegan's power comes at a price, however. By gaining the Akuma Rinnegan, you no longer need to eat, drink, sleep, or do any other necessities of humans. But if you do not, then you slowly begin to wither away into nothing more than a crippled pile of flesh, waiting for someone to either kill you or await until your imminent demise. The only one to find a way around this was the Sage of 6 Paths. When he was near the crippling point, he reabsorbed the power of his 6 paths, no longer being crippled, but being in the perfect body for one his age. He had only one child, but he wanted to make sure that the knowledge of how to gain the second level was lost to time. He left knowledge of only the Rinnegan, not the Akuma Rinnegan. His last surviving remnants were Kushina Uzumaki and Nagato Uzumaki. The Saishugan, Dōjutsu of the Namikaze clan, capable of using pure chakra to a much higher extent than a regular shinobi. They usually become incapable of using any element outside of their natural affinities. It can force chakra to take different forms, ranging from that of a shield, a sword, or even a seal. A Saishugan is also capable of recognizing and breaking down seals so long as chakra has been applied to said seal. All shinobi are capable of using pure chakra like one would use a sword or kunai, but with the Saishugan it becomes second nature to them. Just like the rest of the four great dojutsus, the Saishugan has a second stage, the Kurai Saishugan. The Kurai Saishugan has the ability to instantly cast seals that have been broken down by the eye, can fire raw blasts of pure chakra with little effort, capable of manipulating the chakra within a jutsu that has already been cast, and warp the energy around oneself to a minimal degree. To awaken this stage, you must watch the person you despise most die. Watch as the last trace of life exits their body. The curse of this stage is that you are forever condemned to remember the faces of everyone you have killed or seen die, haunting your nightmares forever. To forget these haunting memories and prevent yourself from going insane, you must learn to let go of the past and find solace. One who succeeded in this endeavor was Minato Namikaze, the last of the Namikaze clan. Minato Namikaze created two extremely destructive techniques thanks to his Saishugan, one that only another Saishugan wielder could hope to use. He created the Hiraishin for his family's personal technique, and the Rasengan, that only his sensei was able to master without the Saishugan. Minato Namikaze, son of Neutra Namikaze and Hitomi Hyuga. His father was the last Namikaze, but refused to marry someone for anything but love, even if it meant the permanent destruction of his bloodline. He fell in love with Hitomi Hyuga of the branch family. Their child grew up an orphan because they died fighting in the Second Shinobi War, dying in the other's arms. Minato Namikaze activated his father's bloodline, but refused to marry for anything but love, for the same reasons as his father. He fell in love and married Kushina Uzumaki, the last of the Uzumaki clan. Kushina Uzumaki, daughter of Madara Uchiha and Kazari Uzumaki. Kushina was a child born from rape. After her father had been exiled from Konoha, he went to Whirlpool to start anew. He was so enveloped by rage that when a woman, Kazari Uzumaki, asked if there was anything she could do to help him, he broke her arms and legs before he raped her. When Kushina was born, her mother died in childbirth. Kushina never was able to activate either of her dojutsu. As the clan heiress, she was never put into life or death situations. She didn't know anything about her father until he came to find the child he knew was born there. When she discovered how she was born, she was enraged and disgusted. She used the skills she learned as an Uzumaki and sliced out her father's left eye. Her father wiped out Whirlpool and the Uzumaki clan, leaving only her alive. But before he left, he placed a seal on her. She could pass on her dojutsu, but she would never activate them. Only a Manjikyu Sharingan, wielded by a seal master, could ever remove the seal. She went to Konoha, where she fell in love with and married Minato Namikaze. The two were on the same genin team. They were unstoppable together. They made friends with the clan heirs. Kushina would talk and hang with every one of her classmates, but Kushina absolutely refused to go near Fugaku Uchiha. All she saw in Fugaku was Uchiha. She did not realize that Fugaku was nothing like Madara. When everyone, including Fugaku, asked why she did not like Fugaku, she explained with great detail. She explained how her father raped her mother, how she was made the last of her clan because of her father's genocide on the village. When the story was done, Fugaku Uchiha, the heartless genius, broke down crying on his knees, begging for her forgiveness for his relatives' misdeeds. Realizing that Fugaku and Madara were nothing alike, she accepted his apology, and they all became great friends. When Kushina and Minato married, not even a month later Minato was named the Yondaime, and not even 2 months afterwards, Kushina declared that they were expecting a child, as were every one of their friends. They couldn't be any happier. Clan alliances were made between all of them. They called themselves the Clan Heads 9. They all were going to have children around the same time. They sort of planned it out that way. 9 months after the declaration, only Kushina and Hayashi's wife had not yet had their children. It was on this day that the Kyuubi attacked the village under orders from Madara Uchiha. The only way to stop the Kyuubi was to seal the demon, and the only thing that could hold the demon was a newborn child, and the only newborn that day was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. After the sealing, Minato died. Kushina was left in a coma, protected by the most trusted Hyugas. And Naruto became the unwilling host of the very demon his grandfather sent to destroy the village. This is where our story begins. Naruto Uzumaki had the capability to activate the Rinnegan, the Sharingan, the Byakugan, or the Saishugan, but because of Kyuubi's chakra unintentionally leaking into his system, it stunted every possible chance for Naruto to activate his bloodlines. It remained his way no matter how many times he was in a life or death situation, no matter how many times he was beaten near death, his bloodlines never activated. All that changed during Naruto's first C-rank mission. During this mission, Naruto, thanks to the very demon who caused his suffering, had achieved once thought impossible. He was now the only living holder of the most powerful I bloodline to date. Behold Naruto of the 4 Dōjutsu. The beginning. It was supposed to be a simple C-rank, bring Tazuna the bridge builder to wave. They weren't supposed to be attacked by anyone other than bandits. They weren't supposed to fight ninja, but they did. They were fist attacked by the missing nin called the Demon Brothers. Then they were attacked by Zabuza Momochi. Kakashi-sensei had defeated him, but before he could finish him off, he was taken by a female hunter nin, who was really his accomplice. They had trained the whole week to fight Zabuza. They thought they were ready. They were not even close. On the bridge, surrounded by mirrors of ice, was Naruto Uzumaki, holding the dead body of his best friend. Is this the first time you have seen a loved one die in battle? Is this the first time your heart has been wrenched out of its chest? Spoke the false hunter nin. Naruto just stood there, holding the body of the last loyal male prodigy of the Uchiha clan. No, this was not the first time Naruto had seen a loved one die. This was not the first time he had his heart wrenched from his chest. Oh, how he remembered that incident well. It would forever haunt his memories, until his dying breath. Flashback. It was October 10th. Naruto was sitting out in the rain, holding the cold body of a young girl with sparkling blonde hair and piercing green eyes. Her name was Chiyo. She had taken a wound to her that was slowly and painfully killing her. The culprit, a tall blue-haired man, a former ANBU that specialized in assassinations, he had lost his wife in the Kyuubi attack, and hated Naruto for holding the monster. Ha 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 ha. How does it feel, demon? To see someone close to you die? Feel my pain before I do the same to you, monster. Yelled the crazed shinobi. Naruto felt rage welled up inside of him. All the rage and hatred that he had hidden over the years was finally released. He wanted to kill the bastard. He tried to hurt him by killing an innocent. He would die. You bastard. I'll fucking kill you. Naruto ran at the man who was unaware of Naruto's attack. Naruto plunged the kunai that the man shoved into Chiyo's arm right into his heart. Naruto shoved the kunai deeper into his heart, staring into the eyes of the man that killed the person he cherished most. He hated the man. He had never hated anything, not hated anyone, more than he hated this man. He had endured Konoha's hatred towards him, so be it. But when he hurt Naruto's only friend, he would die. Naruto watched as the life slowly drained from the terrified and crazed eyes of the bastard shinobi. Join your family in hell, you son of a bitch. Naruto shoved the kunai one last bit into his heart, seeing the last bit of life drain from his eyes. Naruto stood up and ran back to Chiyo's side. No, Chiyo, don't die, please don't die. Don't leave me alone. Chiyo looked up at Naruto. Naruto, please. I don't think I can make it, Naruto. Please. Kill me. Naruto was horrified. He couldn't possibly kill his precious person. Chiyo, please don't ask me to do that. We can still. Naruto. I'm dying. Please end this pain for me. Please. Naruto couldn't believe what Chiyo was asking him to do. But she was in pain, he couldn't stand that. So, with great reluctance, he raised the blood-stained kunai, "Kami-sama, forgive me," and plunged it into her heart to give her a quick death. Naruto-kun. Naruto turned to see Chiyo's beautiful green eyes, seeing the life drain from them. "Let me look into your eyes. Let me have the sight of our eyes be the last thing I see." Naruto never turned away, granting Chiyo her final wish. He watched as the life drained from his most cherished person, the one he had killed, to end her pain. Naruto swung his head back and roared to the thunderclouds as the rain pelted his tear-stained face. "Nu!" The lightning crashed around them as he roared in despair. Naruto, at 11 years old, would never forget what he had done. It would haunt his nightmares forever. Flashback Kai. And now here he was, holding his precious person, just as he had held Chiyo not even a year ago. He could feel the white-hot tears flowing down his face as the red chakra bubbled around him. He could feel the cold, lifeless body of his self-adopted brother and rival. How he wanted to have the power to hurt the damn hunter bitch. How he wanted her to suffer for killing his brother. Little did he know, at that very time, the very demon that caused the damn villagers to hate him so much was granting his wish. Mindscape, same time. Kyuubi, the heiress of the Kitsunes and the most powerful demon outside of the Kitsune clan leaders, was disgusted. She had been imprisoned in the boy for over 12 years. When she woke up not even minutes ago, she looked at her host's life. She saw every beating that he had endured because that thrice-damned Uchiha had forced her to attack a village that she held no quarrel with. They condemn a child for something he did not control, all because of me. Kyuubi sobbed to herself, loathing herself for hurting such an innocent soul. I will make it up to him. But how? Kyuubi thought perhaps she could give him a bloodline, but that would cause him to become a Hanyu. She sobbed even harder, hating herself for not being able to make it up to her. She then noticed something. She looked at his family history. She then had the biggest foxy grin on her tear-stained face. I just may have found a way to start making up my debt to you, Naruto-kun. Where the fuck did the kun come from? Deciding to leave that thought for later, she activated the bloodlines of Naruto, the 4 great Dōjutsus, and gave them a way to be compatible at last. But she was not done there. She made sure that Naruto had all the power he could get from the Dōjutsus, feeling that if anyone deserved their power, it was Uzumaki Naruto. She regrettably decided to make Naruto physically relive the memory of his friend's death, to activate the final stages. Naruto-kun, please forgive me for causing you this pain. I feel my debt to you will never be repaid, but I will do whatever I can to make your life better. Knowing that each Dōjutsu had a downside, she flooded the prepared product with her chakra to purify them. Well, I may have been able to keep himself from making it impossible to use the eyes, but they will still have their downsides. At least the downsides are now only chakra-based. Being satisfied with her finished project, she painfully began the activation process. Naruto-kun, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me for the pain I am about to cause you. She then began the process, never noticing that her tampering broke the seal that bound her. Back with Naruto. As Naruto was crying, he began to feel pain in his eyes and forehead. It started out small, then erupted into a pain far worse than any beating he had ever endured. He felt his eyes burning. He felt his forehead cracking in 2 places, both of them right above his eyes. He felt the flesh split and blood pour down his face. He clutched his forehead and felt the flesh surround 2 holes in his forehead like they would an eye socket. He then touched the inside of the holes and felt the blood forming together, solidifying, forming some sort of flesh object. He screamed in pain as his own chakra mingled with the red chakra that he knew was the 9-tailed fox's. He did not notice the chakra coming together nearby him as it began to form a solid object, an object very human-like. All he felt was insurmountable pain. He heard tears of what sounded like sorrow, and he then felt himself be embraced from behind by a pair of arms. He felt the pain slowly die down until it was non-existent. He turned around to see the face of possibly the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. He finally looked down into his puddle of tears and blood to see his reflection. Seeing a 4-eyed blonde staring back at him, Naruto of the 4 Dōjutsus was born. Finally, I had some writer's block in how Naruto can use all 4 of the eye techniques, with different drawbacks thanks to Kyuubi's tampering. Naruto could not believe it, where once he had 2 eyes, he now had 4 eyes. How the fuck did that happen? He did not have time to ponder this thought anymore because he sensed a series of projectiles coming in from his left and right sides. He jumped up and knocked the senbon away. Wait. He knocked the senbon away. The class dobe who could not even hit the center of the target at the academy had knocked away a senbon? I do not know how you managed to do that, but it won't help you. I will fulfill my purpose to Zabuza-sama. Haku then placed her hand in a half-Tora seal and sent hundreds of ice needles in Naruto's direction. Seeing no way to dodge, he hunkered down and waited for the onslaught. It never came. He looked up to see a young redhead, probably only a year older than him. Her body was riddled with the needles that had almost hit him. You bitch! Naruto felt his rage boil. He turned to the one known as Haku, but before he could move a single inch, the ice in the mirrors shattered. What the fuck just happened? Naruto could not be any more confused. First he blocks a bunch of senbon before he even sees them. Then he apparently shattered a Kekii Genkai just by looking at the user. What's next? Black flames from his eye. How the hell did I do that? With Kakashi and Zabuza. They had both seen what Naruto did. Kakashi was wondering what Naruto could possibly have done to shatter a Kekii Genkai. Zabuza was incredibly confused. How did this Gaki defeat his daughter's Kekii Genkai? They stared at Naruto until he looked up in their direction. When they saw his face, they were creeped out and amazed. Naruto now had 4 eyes, each one was different. In Naruto's eyes were the 4 great Dōjutsu. In the eye above his original right eye was the Sharingan. In the eye below his Sharingan was the Saishugan. His original left eye was now the white of the Byakugan, and the eye above his Byakugan. He had no idea what it was, but it had a single small black pupil and was surrounded by Vario's rings. He thought perhaps someone else would know about it once they got back to Konoha. But why the hell did Naruto have the Saishugan? The only person he knew of who possessed that eye was... Realization dawned on him. Minato-sensei. Zabuza was confused as hell. Haku could never be defeated by a lowly genin. Nobody could break her Kekii Genkai. It just wasn't feasible. Zabuza stared at the kid and finally realized what the hell happened. The child had the 4 great Dōjutsu, and they were in their second stages. That was how he did it. The Rinnegan's second stage allowed one to control the sub-elements to a degree. But how did this kid possess all 4 of the great Dōjutsu? Anyone who had heard the legends of the Dōjutsu knew they were incompatible. He stopped pondering this when he saw the child turn to the now terrified Haku. No, he would not let his daughter be harmed. Fuck his missing nin bravado. No one hurts his daughter. He rushed towards the boy to protect his child. Back with Naruto. Naruto turned his head to the now terrified girl and walked towards her. When he was only a step away, he felt someone come at him. Completely on instinct, he raised his arm and charged chakra into it, stopping what appeared to be a heavily used guillotine. He turned his head to see Zabuza, but he then turned back towards Haku. The strange thing was when he looked into her eyes, he saw the truths about her. He saw that Sasuke was not dead. He released the guillotine and shoved Zabuza back by pushing the sword. He walked over to the red-haired girl and lifted up her injured form bridal style, causing her to blush a Hinata-style red. Apparently she liked him. Yes, Naruto knew that Hinata liked him, and he himself liked her back. But he was afraid of what people would do to her if she was dating the Kyuubi brat. Naruto began walking towards Kakashi-sensei when he heard clapping. He turned his head to see a short, portly-looking man standing in front of what seemed to be about 300 thugs, carrying weapons from axes to katanas. Well, it seems that the so-called demon of the mist can't even beat some 4-eyed genin freak. No matter, my thugs should be able to kill all of you. The one Naruto assumed as Gato then sent a lecherous grin towards the 3 girls on the bridge. But I think I'll keep the little girls. They would definitely prove an exotic fuck. The rest of the thugs licked their lips in anticipation to possibly rape the girls. Oh, by the way, Tazuna, you might want to hand yourself over. Especially when I have this. Gato pointed behind him to see Tsunami being dragged up with her son. Both in chains. Naruto was about ready to run forwards when he stopped to think. No, I need a plan. How can I get them out of there if they are surrounded by over 300 thugs? But what? If only I could take out all those thugs without hurting Tsunami or Inari. Naruto's thoughts were answered when he started to feel a stinging in his top right eye. He looked at the thugs, he saw Kakashi looking at him with a wide eye. But when he looked at the thugs, he saw what appeared to be a swirling mass pulling anything it could grip into it. The thugs started lifting off the ground before they were brought right into the vortex where they were shredded. He saw the blood pour out of the vortex. This continued until only Gato, Tsunami, and Inari were left on the bridge. "What the fuck did you do to my menu?" Gato had looked directly to Naruto, who was running right at him, followed by a very pissed of Kubariki-wielding Zabuza and a Chidori-charged Kakashi. Gato did not even have time to blink. He was kicked up in the air by Naruto. He did not reach the ground before Zabuza leapt up in the air, cutting him in half at the hip. The last thing Gato saw was a ball of lightning being shoved into his face. Naruto was exhausted and fell to his knees. "Shit, that took a lot out of me. Hey Kakashi-sensei, can I get a little help here?" Naruto did not realize just how much chakra he used using all 4 of the great Dōjutsu's final stages. Kakashi was amazed. Naruto not only had the Sharingan, but the Byakugan, the Saishugan, and some other Dōjutsu. But the most amazing thing was that his Sharingan had morphed into a pinwheel shape. Naruto had the Manjikyu Sharingan. Naruto's was slightly different yet similar to Itachi Uchiha's. Naruto's Manjikyu was shaped like a 3-point curved shuriken. It seemed to have a smaller petal arrangement inside each groove, separating the points. Kakashi knew that the Manjikyu Sharingan was extremely powerful, but he wondered who of Naruto's parents had it. Kakashi decided to leave that thought for later. He went to help up Naruto when he was pushed aside and saw Naruto be embraced by Tsunami and Inari, both sobbing. "Thank you, Naruto-kun, thank you. If you hadn't killed those monsters, we would have been tortured and sold as slaves. I would have been separated from my only child to be used as a sex slave." Tsunami burst into tears while burying her face into Naruto's comforting embrace. 3 hours later at Tezuna's. Team 7, Tezuna, Tsunami, and Inari had arrived at the house with Zabuza, Haku, and the now identified to Kakashi Kyuubi. They had to carry Naruto because he had overexerted his chakra, much to Sasuke and Sakura's ire and to the joy of Kyuubi. They had just laid Naruto's exhausted form on the couch before the questions started. "Alright Kakashi-sensei, why the hell does Naruto have 4 eyes? Why are the missing Nin that tried to kill us here? And who the fuck are you?" Sasuke was confused as ever seeing the Kyuubi. He was glad he activated his Sharingan, and was amazed that he held his own against the Hunter Nin. Kakashi did not know how to explain this without breaking any S-class laws. What could he say? Naruto has all 4 of the great Dōjutsus because he had the Kyuubi sealed inside of his body. Oh yeah, that wouldn't be breaking any laws. Just as he was about to speak, Kyuubi decided to talk. "Kakashi-san, I will explain. You can't reveal some of the information that they need." Sasuke and Sakura were confused. What couldn't Kakashi reveal? "Now to begin, I will tell you who I am. I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune." Everyone but Kakashi was surprised at this. Here, standing in front of them, was the very demon that had destroyed their village. But she seemed so gentle and kind. "I am sorry for what I did over 12 years ago. I was not myself. An Uchiha by the name of Madara. He used the power of the eternal Manjikyu to gain temporary control of me and forced me to attack the village. I was imprisoned inside Naruto by your yandame. I never wanted to attack the village. I woke up after 12 years and viewed my host's life. How can humans treat their young so horribly? He was beaten to death on his 5th birthday. How can they be so cruel?" Kyuubi was sobbing with her face in her hands. Tsunami was trying her best to comfort her. Sasuke and Sakura were appalled. If Naruto was treated that badly, then why weren't there any scars? "Kakashi, if what she says is true, why aren't there any scars?" questioned Tezuna, appalled that someone could do something so despicable to a child. "The reason Naruto wears that jumpsuit is because it was layered with hundreds of genjutsu seals that never fade thanks to the special cloth in it. Naruto has scars covering every part of his body. He has been beaten by most of Konoha's population." Sasuke and Sakura were appalled. Naruto endured that. They went to Naruto's sleeping form and removed his bright orange jumpsuit. When they finished removing it, a shimmer went across Naruto's sleeping form to show hundreds of scars covering his whole body. Where Naruto's whisker marks were, there was a large scar in each place, carved in by a sharpened kunai knife. They looked at Naruto's chest to see a diagonal scar leading from the top of his left shoulder to right below his hip. They also saw burn marks that seemed to come from Keton Jutsu. Most of the burns were just rough skin now, but when they turned Naruto onto his back, it looked like he had the Kyuubi no Kitsune carved into his back with white-hot kunai knives. They looked at his right arm to show that it had been cut off and then reattached at some point. Not being able to take any more, Sakura ran from the room with tears in her eyes, while Sasuke was shivering like a leaf. Kakashi, is this how your village treats its heroes? He saved your village by holding this demon, no offense, in his navel, and they beat him for something he could not control. I am wondering if we should ever hire from Konoha again after seeing what they did to a child. Tazuna was seriously miffed. Here was a child no older than 12 that had been beaten because he was a prison for a monster. Narrow-minded fucks. Jiren and G, everyone turned around to see that Naruto was now waking up. My head hurts like hell, damn it. Sakura and Sasuke were staring at Naruto, and Haku was wearing a blush seeing Naruto's well-toned chest. Why are you guys staring at me? Sakura handed him a mirror. Thanks, Sakura Sichan. Naruto looked into the mirror to see 4 eyes staring back at him. I thought that was a dream. Naruto was now hyperventilating. Tsunami ran across the room and started rubbing her hand on his back, trying to calm him down. What the fuck happened to me? Naruto was saying his words in between breaths. Kyuubi came forward and began to explain. As soon as the explanation was done, Naruto looked into Kyuubi's eyes. He saw she was not lying. I forgive you. Then Naruto asked the question that everyone was wondering. Why the hell do I have 4 eyes? Everyone looked at Kyuubi, who had on an uncomfortable grin. She then told everyone how she went through his DNA and found a way for the Dōjutsus to be compatible, as well as the fact his second stage now only caused the major downsides if he overexerted his chakra or used what was left of Kyuubi's that was still in her body. At the end of it, Naruto did a very Hinata-like feint. Thump! Kyuubi looked from Naruto to the rest of the group and broke out in a huge grin. I think he took that rather well. Everyone's sweat dropped at the fact that the Kyuubi was little different than a teenager. They left the room to get to bed. But late that night, Kyuubi and Haku stalked downstairs to sleep on either side of the now 4-eyed Uzumaki. Note that Naruto will not have the drawbacks of the original, but there will be others with the second stage of the Dōjutsu. Naruto will have to help them get through their second stage. Look at poll to vote on the last 5 girls in the harem. I finally managed to get the poll on my profile. Please go to poll for choosing of Kyuubi's name. Naruto woke up feeling well rested, but his head was still splitting. He would definitely have to figure out some way to use his new dojutsus without overdoing it. He was going to have a hard time finding an eye to hide them though. He could only imagine the villagers' reactions. Oh God, the demon shows its true colors. Let's kill him instead of understanding him while praising the man who made his life hell. Yeah, that would likely happen if he did not figure out some way to present this to the council. Unfortunately, without any living relatives, there was no way he could prove it. Little did Naruto know that the woman, who gave him life, was awaking from her 12-year coma. Heavily guarded Hyuga Hospital. Kushina Uzumaki was now waking up and opening her eyes after 12 years of hibernation due to birth stress. She did not know how long she was asleep. She thought she was asleep for a few days. I wonder where Minato-koi is. I can't believe I have been asleep for the past few days. She had thoughts of hugging her husband, hugging her child. Oh my God, Naruto, who has been breastfeeding him, I have to find. Her yelling was cut off when the door to her room opened with a shaky-looking man around his 40s, and he greatly resembled Hayashi. Hi, I just need to get out of here. Do you know where my son is? He was born a few days ago and I was wondering if... Could you please stop staring at me? It's kind... Kushina! The old man jumped at her and enveloped her in a bone-crushing hug. Whoa there, old-timer. I don't swing that way. Kushina was confused. This old guy knew her and seemed relieved to see her. Who the hell are you? Are you an older relative of Hayashi Baka? The old man seemed to gain a twitch in his forehead. Kushina. It's me. I'm Hayashi. Kushina could not believe it. Here was her old academy buddy Hayashi. In his 40s. The last she remembered, he was only 29 years old. She slowly calmed down and asked the question that was now eating away at her. Hayashi, how long have I been in a coma? Hayashi knew that Kushina would not take this well. Kushina, you have been in a coma for near 12 years. Kushina could not believe it. She could not believe it. She had been in a coma for almost 12 years. She had missed breastfeeding her son. She had missed his first birthday. She may have even missed him graduating from the academy if he decided to join. Only one word escaped her lips. Naruto. Back with Naruto. Naruto sneezed, completely waking him up. Someone must be talking about me. The thought of the villagers popped into his head. He seemed to suffer their ire even when he was out of the village. His thoughts of the villagers stopped when he felt the urge to use the toilet. Knowing that holding it would make it worse, he decided to get up. When suddenly realizing that he couldn't move, he panicked, thinking that he was going to be tortured in some way, tried to wiggle free to turn his head to the left and see the Kyuubi. So he wasn't dreaming last night. He tried to move the other direction and looked to see Haku. Now Naruto was really confused. He had no idea what to do in this situation. He had two extremely beautiful girls snuggling under his blanket right up to his chest. He tried to move his hand when he brushed up against something, causing Haku to moan in her sleep. Shocked by the clearly pleasurable moan that Haku made, he looked under the low covers to find that while Haku wore a very thin silky nightgown, Kyuubi was wearing absolutely nothing. He now saw how beautifully fair Haku-chan's skin was. It looked to be as pure as the fairest snow. There was not a single flaw in any part of her soft skin. Kyuubi-chan's skin was also fairly beautiful. It had a slight tan to her skin tone. It looked like a beautiful burnt tan. It had a slightly rougher texture, but it felt so soft to the touch. Naruto was now subconsciously rubbing both of their skin, waking them up. Haku and Kyuubi woke up to find Naruto stroking their skin. This knowledge caused them to blush before sending each other a mischievous grin. So Naruto thinks we feel nice, why don't we return the favor? Was the thought that both could see in the other's eyes. Naruto was unaware of what he was doing until he felt a hot breath on his ear coming from Haku. It sent such a pleasurable chill up his spine. Naruto-kun, does my soft, supple flesh feel good to you? The clearly sensual question was made even more sensual by Haku grinding her hips into Naruto's thigh, eliciting an even louder moan from her. What about me, Naruto-kun? Doesn't my flesh? Kyuubi grabbed his hand that was rubbing her back and guided it to. Does my flesh please you? She guided it to her sternum right in between her impressive C-cups. She pushed his hand into both of her breasts, causing her to release a moan filled with ecstasy. Don't we please you? Both girls asked with a very sensual, lust-filled look in their eyes. Naruto could not take it. He was used to getting beat up on his birthdays. He was used to eating poisoned food. He was even used to being stabbed near to death. This is not something he was used to. Two extremely hot girls were currently using his body as a pleasure toy. Running out of options, he did the first thing that came to mind. H. Naruto yelled, skyrocketed himself off the fold-up bed and onto the ceiling fan just above him. A trail of blood signified he was trying to contain a nosebleed. Haku and Kyuubi looked at each other before bursting out laughing. It's true that they were attracted to the four-eyed blonde, but they did not expect their flirting to do that. They continued laughing until the wall separating the living room and the kitchen was busted down, showing a Kubariki-wielding Zabuza wearing bunny slippers, a Sharingan-wielding Kakashi, and Sasuke with both of his eyes activated while wearing a shirt that said, I love tomatoes. The sight that they came across could not be any more disturbing. Haku and Kyuubi were either naked or were wearing skimpy clothing. They were wrapped up in a blanket that looked like it had been recently thrown off, and Naruto was hanging from the ceiling, muttering about overly sensual girls and how he was not an Ero Shigen. Zabuza was looking at his daughter and back at the twitching Naruto that had just been taken off the ceiling by a very proud-looking Kakashi. Haku, I think it's about time we had. Zabuza was dreading this. Why couldn't her mother do this? Oh, that's right. She was in Konoha waiting for them. The talk with Kakashi. Kakashi could not be any more proud of his student. He had gotten to sleep, not that kind of sleep you pervs, with two absolutely stunning ladies. Well, technically one was an all-powerful demoness, but both girls seemed to have an attraction towards him. And with his new bloodlines, he could fall under the Clan Restoration Act, meaning multiple wives. Kushina-sama would so kill me for the way I am going to corrupt my student. He knew that Kushina would kick his ass for corrupting any children. With Kushina had just stopped bawling when she felt a strange sensation run up her spine. Overprotective mother senses. Tingling. At the mention of the word mother, she went back to bawling while Hayashi and his wife tried to calm her down. Nitara was a beautiful woman. She was a refugee from the Hidden Rain village. Her eyes were a beautiful mauve and her hair was a stunning violet. If Hinata did not have short hair and the Byakugan, the two of them could practically be twins. Albeit one was taller than the other and was extremely possessive of her husband. Being possessive of what they claim as theirs is a problem that most women in Nitara's family have. Hinata seemed to have carried that trait in regards to Naruto. Kushina had just been told about everything Naruto had endured, down to the last beating. She could not believe that her son lived through all that. Why didn't you take him in Hayashi? Why did an O1 take him in? Kushina was angry. The alliance between their clans stated that when one of their own was in trouble, the other would come to assist. Why did none of her friends take Naruto in? Kushina, we tried everything we could to adopt Naruto. But the civilian council and the elders managed to block us at every turn. We managed to hold enough power to keep Naruto from getting executed. But that was as far as we could go. Kushina was now quivering in rage. The council tried to have my son executed? The venom in her voice terrified the room's occupants. Those fuckers are dead. Do you hear me? Dia ad. Kushina ran straight for the clothes that have been sitting on her bedside and pressed a seal her husband had placed on it and pulled out her special friend. She was now holding the same blade she had used to slaughter 117 IWA and Kumo shinobi that were invading Konoha. This very same blade is what got her the nickname, the Red Death, and now she was going to use it on the fuckers who tried to murder her child. She started walking right towards the door before she was grabbed by her arms by Nitara and Hayashi. Let go of me. I'm going to kill those bastards. Kushina was struggling from being in a coma for the past 12 years. No, Kushina, you can't go out here and kill. Fuck you, Hayashi. I can't believe you would allow these monsters to go on living after what they have done. Have you never wanted to hell my son? I have wanted to kill the fuckers who dare call themselves human beings for so long. The Hyuga elders and I, the branch house even, were ready to go out and kill half the village for what they did to Naruto. But before we could even leave the compound, Naruto found out about our plan. He begged Kushina. He begged us to not hurt the villagers. He begged on his hands and knees to forgive them. We wanted so badly to go out and kill every person who harmed him, Kushina. But we saw that doing that would only hurt him more than he already was. Kushina stopped struggling. She turned to face Hayashi. How? Kushina was confused. How could he stand them after what they have done? Kushina, this time it was Nitara who spoke. For some reason or another, he sees the village as precious to him. He often talks about how great his family must be, but he sometimes wonders if they abandoned him. If he saw you, his own mother, after so long, kill every villager who had ever wronged him, Naruto would go insane. He would more than likely run away from the village and hang himself for the dogs to eat. Before coming near you, the conflicting emotions just would not process properly in his brain. Kushina remained silent. She was right. If her child saw her do such a thing, his own mother, killing anyone he viewed as precious, he would kill himself to relieve him of his mental torment. Kushina broke into tears, thinking that she had failed as a mother in every way. Back with Naruto. Kakashi-sensei had just finished giving him the talk. Did sensei really have to use his damn perverted book for reference? He saw Haku walk out of the room with Zabuza before she started blushing tomato red at the sight of Naruto. Naruto was not faring much better. He could not even look in Kyuubi, Sakura's, Tsunami's or Haku's directions without having to cover his nose to stifle a nosebleed. He walked into his room and decided to check out his wardrobe. He was still wearing the same Kill Me orange jumpsuit. He loved the jumpsuit, not because it was orange, but because it was the first and only gift he had ever received. He knew it was from Kurenai and Anko. The two of them always were looking out for him when he was a child. He knew that they thought he was cute. Every time he looked into their eyes, he saw a weird sparkle. The same time he saw, in Hinata-chan's eyes, the realization hit him: the Genjutsu Ice Queen and the Snake Mistress loved Naruto. But why? With Kurenai and Anko. Sachou, both of the beauties sitting at the table, sneezed. "Whoa, someone must be talking about us," was Kurenai's reply. "I wonder if it's Naruto-kun though." Bad Kurenai, he's 8 years younger than you. But still. Kurenai was depressed. She had fallen in love with Naruto when her and Anko made him that orange jumpsuit for him when he was 7. She was only 15 at the time, so she had no idea that spying on someone that young in the shower was a bad thing. When she heard about pedophilia happening on the other side of the village, she was ashamed of herself. She tried to forget her feelings for Naruto, but she couldn't. She had fallen for the blonde fox boy. Anko was in the same boat. She remembered how she fell for the little Gaki who was 6 years her junior. She remembered that it was thanks to Naruto that she still had her innocence. Flashback. Anko had just been declared innocent by the Hokage for being a traitor and was now walking to her new apartment. She was just about to unlock the door when she was grabbed by her arm and then thrown into an alley. She looked up to see the faces of the council members who were adamant in her execution. They were wearing very lecherous grins. So the snake whore thought she could walk home alone without being assaulted. "You may be allowed to live by Hokage's word, but we are still going to punish you. But we are going to have lots of fun out of it." The 3 councilmen, who were probably in their late 30s, were advancing on Anko, who was no older than 10. Anko was scared. She was so terrified. "I'm going go furs, I ned's a good F***." The fat and drunk council member started advancing on her faster, but before he could reach her, he was tackled to the ground by a bright blonde flash. The blonde-haired street rat, who seemed no older than 4, then proceeded to punch the councilman hard enough in the face to make some serious damage. "You bastard! Smash! How smash? Dare smash you! Smash do smash something, smash! So, smash disgusting, smash you! Smash pelicon!" The blonde-haired Gaki then grabbed the councilman's hair and used his adrenaline-pumped body, threw the fat ass across the alley into a bunch of garbage cans. Just as Naruto was about to go finish the fat ass off, the other 2 council men ran towards him. Not wanting to see him get hurt, she grabbed a nearby trash can and threw it at their heads, forcing them to smash into the brick wall, killing them instantly. He started getting up before she saw that the blonde Gaki had been thrown across the alley with a kunai embedded right next to his heart. The fat counselor then ran over to her and grabbed her by her throat. "I was going to let you live after I fucked ya. BDSMS, I ain't having that luxury. Any less words before I... His sentence was "see you off" when the blonde Gaki sliced at his ankles, forcing him to fall over. Anko had fallen down but was too in shock to move. The blown grabbed a nearby wrench that seemed too big for him to possibly pick up. But adrenaline does wonderful things. He then took a couple kunais and stabbed them into the portly man's hands. "HHHHH. Please haha have murky HHH." A kunai knife was shoved into his spine to keep him from squirming. "You begged me for mercy when you were about to rape her. I got a news flash for ya. I'm all out of mercy. Die, you fucking bastard." Blondie raised the giant wrench above his head before he brought it down right on that asshole's head. New crunch. The wrench had crushed the guy's skull, but his body was still twitching. When Naruto realized what was going on and what he had done, he fell backwards, eyes wide open. Blondie was having trouble staying upright. "Hey Gaki! Gaki! Thump! Gaki! Shit kid, don't you die on me. Don't die." Anko was sobbing at this point. This Gaki, that did not even know her, was risking his life to save her innocence. "Juranen." The blondie was opening his eyes. "Yes. Okay, kidum. My name's Anko, what's yours?" His eyes were starting to flutter again. Gaki, what is your name? The blondie could barely speak. And Naruto. My name is Naruto. Anko was relieved that the Gaki could speak. Okay, good. Now Naruto, I need you to stay awake for me. Can you do that? Ank was scared beyond belief. The only thing she had been taught by Orochimaru were combat jutsus. She did not know much about medical jutsu. Look, Naruto, I am going to perform some first aid. This will hurt, okay? Naruto nodded for her to go ahead. The first thing she had to do was rip out the kunai knife. She looked at the Gaki as she ripped it out. He barely flinched. The idea that he had enough pain tolerance to be able to barely feel a kunai being ripped from his chest was terrifying. What have you gone through to become so strong? She had no more time to ponder this. She had to dress the wound now. She spent the next 5 minutes making quick stitches in the skin to slow the bleeding while applying pressure. Not even a minute after finishing the stitching, a young Irika found the alley and saw the 3 bodies, Anko covered in blood, and the demon brat. Noticing the sneer that Irika was sending at the boy, she instinctually hugged him close to her chest. The demon brat has killed people. Hand him over so we can end this monster once and for all. No, he saved me, he's a fucking demon girl. He killed my parents. He has to die before... Irika's sentence was cut off when Anko lashed him across the bridge of his nose with the same kunai knife that was in Naruto's chest. Not another word. This was not the usual Anko. The usual Anko was scared and submissive. This was cold and ruthless, a true shinobi, brought out by her desire to protect the one who saved her innocence and life. Before she could make another move to hurt the scarred genin, 2 Anbu showed up and began to advance on her. Not trusting anyone tonight, she brought Naruto closer to her chest while holding a kunai at the ready just in case. Ms. Mitarashi, we need to take him to the hospital. The silver-haired ANBU member tried to pry Naruto from her grip, but she refused to let go. Please, Anko, we need to. No, I am going with him. I am not letting him get hurt. The 2 ANBU looked at each other before nodding. The large bear masked ANBU, then picked up both Naruto and Anko, neither one letting the other go. They then jumped off into the distance to the hospital. About halfway there, Naruto woke up and stared into the beautiful purplish tan eyes of Anko Mitarashi. Pretty, was all Naruto said before passing out again. Anko began to blush. Did he just call me pretty? She looked at the whisker marks of the poor Gaki. She felt a warm feeling in her chest. For the first time in months, Anko smiled. She snuggled into Naruto even more. Naruto-kun, yes, Naruto-kun. The ANBU could only smile at this scene. Anko and Naruto, both outcasts looking for acceptance, it couldn't turn out any better. Kai. Anko could not help it. She had fallen for the Gaki the day he saved her innocence. She had so badly wanted to go up and tell the little Gaki how she felt. She knew Kurenai liked the kid as well, and she was curious as to why that was. Kurenai, said Genjutsu mistress, turned her head. Why do you like Naruto? Kurenai blushed at this and looked away from her longtime friend. Come on, Kurenai, you know why I like the Gaki, but I never found out why you liked him. He, 2 of them had been friends for years. Kurenai at one time did not care either way about the boy, until she saw the scars that riddled his body. She began stalking the boy whenever he was home. She remembers the time that she and Anko had made the orange jumpsuit he wears so much. Flashback. Naruto had just woken up. It was now October 10th, his birthday, and he was now 6 years old. He wanted to go to the academy. But he didn't want anyone to see his scars. If there was one thing Naruto could not stand, it was definitely pity. He had just finished washing his toothbrush in boiled water and went out to the living room, where there was a square package. Outside Naruto's window was Kurenai Yuhi and Anko Mitarashi. They knew that the Gaki did not have any skills in Genjutsu. So Anko made a specialized jumpsuit out of a lightweight, durable fabric, while Kurenai applied everlasting Genjutsu seals. They had made the jumpsuit and placed it in the middle of his living room inside a square cardboard box. They were now watching as he picked up a long stick from behind his furniture and started poking the box before jumping behind the furniture. Wow, Anko, when you said this kid was paranoid, you were not kidding. Kurenai had never seen anyone much less a 6-year-old act so cautious of a present. They watched him repeat the process at different angles until he went to the box, threw off the top, and ran back behind the furniture. He slowly walked towards the box with the jumpsuit in it. He pulled it out and then, just like a curious animal would, he played with it. Kurenai had to stifle a giggle that threatened to come out. When he was done playing with it, he decided to try and put it on. But then there was knocking at his door. He looked around for a place to hide it. The only place it could go is out the window. He ran to the window and threw it out, hoping it would catch on something. Kurenai and Anko were furious for a second seeing him throw it out the window, until they saw 3 old drunks barge into his house and destroy everything that he owned right before they tried to beat him. Unable to take any more, they jumped through the window and kicked all of the drunks' asses. They then went and grabbed Naruto and ran to the hospital. Late that night, they go back to check on Naruto in the hospital only to find a trail of blood leading back to his apartment. They followed it all the way up to Naruto's apartment to find him sleeping on the floor with the same jumpsuit that they had made. Kurenai was astounded. He risked blood loss for a gift. She saw him stir as he opened his eyes. He looked into her crimson orbs. He said a single word to describe the angel he saw: beautiful. Kurenai was blushing. The boy had just called her beautiful, but he wasn't being snide about it or trying to get into her pants. He said it because he genuinely thought that. Kai. They had both fallen hard for the Gaki, but they knew they could not share him. Unless he somehow came back from a mission with a Kekei Genkai, he was going to be allowed only one wife. How lucky they were that that was the current case. Back with Naruto. Naruto was starting to get really confused. All evidence points that Kurenai Yuhi, the Ice Queen of Konoha, and Anko Mitarashi, the Snake Mistress, had the hots for him. Oh boy, if his assumptions were true, then he was going to have a heyday with Kakashi. He wondered how they would take his new look. He certainly hoped they did not hate him for the extra eyes. Naruto wondered if this new eye form would be passed on to his children, considering he ever had any. Little did he know that someone was determining that back in Konoha right this minute. Hokage's office. The Sandaime was currently battling the second greatest enemy to mankind, a creature far worse than any experiment created by the traitorous snake Sannin paperwork. He cursed whatever god. He was currently reading through the report that Team 7 had just sent via Messenger Eagle. Sai, the Sandaime, was wondering how the council was going to take this. Yes, the council was the greatest enemy to mankind. Corrupted dumbass. Once they got wind of the fact that a bloodline user was coming to Konoha, they would be demanding her use as a breeding stock. Not to mention the fact that the old war would be demanding that the Kyuubi be turned over to him. He was currently rereading the report on what happened to Naruto. He began rubbing his temples after he finished. I'm getting too old for this shit. Suddenly the door to his office was slammed open. Lord Hokage-sama, I apologize for interrupting you, but we have news on that blood sample Kakashi-san sent us. Kakashi had sent a blood sample to Konoha a few days ago. Kakashi was wondering if Naruto's new condition would be passed on to his children. And I must say, sir, that it produced interesting results. Well, what have you discovered? Sarutobi was getting anxious. How the hell did Naruto have all 4 Dōjutsu running through his veins? Minato was the only one of Naruto's parents with an active Dōjutsu. Could Kushina have hidden hers too well? Sir, it would seem that the blood sample contains all 4 of the Dōjutsu. The difference being is that they are compatible. Apparently the major issue with Dōjutsu is that since they are dominant genes, one either becomes inactive or they never manifest. This is due to the fact that the human eye can only contain the chakra network for a single Dōjutsu. But the DNA sample shows that the DNA was altered in that the body managed to gain 2 extra eyes, and then placed a single Dōjutsu in each eye. And judging from the sample, this would be passed on as a fully dominant trait, all 4 Dōjutsu with all the strengths of the originals. We now have the most powerful Dōjutsu bloodline to be created from experimenting with Dōjutsu. Sarutobi was sitting there with his mouth wide open. The most powerful Dōjutsu bloodline thus far. Amazing. Experiments with the Byakugan over 80 years ago in mist created Dōjutsu that basically blinded the Byakugan. Amazing that Naruto no could become the most powerful Dōjutsu shinobi. But that's not all, sir. It appears that Naruto has all the benefits of the Dojutsu's second forms. But the drawbacks are far less than what their predecessors were. Sarutobi could barely keep himself conscious. Naruto could use the Manjikyu Sharingan without going blind, but what about the other Dojutsu? What were their second forms? At this point, one more bit of shocking information and he would lose consciousness. Suddenly the door flew open, revealing Nidera, wife of Hayashi Hyuga, Lord Hokage. Kushina woke up, thump. Nidera looked at the Sandame's desk to see him lying on the floor. What did I say? Back with Naruto. He was currently walking around town to see if he could not find a store that did custom clothes. He was having a difficult time not feeling uncomfortable because of all the stares being directed at him. Stares of admiration. This was new. Usually people were staring at him with hate-filled eyes. Finally he found a shop that made clothes and gear. He walked inside to see various cloths, anything you could find from silk to leather to cotton. He was now looking at a high-density fiber when someone tapped him on the shoulder. He spun around to see a man by the age of about 30 looking at him. What can I help you with, Sonny? We make custom clothes here. So if you can just tell me what you want and how much I can set something up for you. The man had an aura around him that Naruto calmed down around aura. Shit, Naruto had to ask Kyuubi-chan about. Chan? Yeah. I was wondering if I could get this made. Naruto pulled out a sketch pad that had a drawing of a few sets of clothes. I would like 3 pairs of each. The materials I would like them made out of are on the page behind it. I would like the sketch pad back when you're done. How much will it cost? Naruto had been trying to get those designs made for a long time, but no store in Konoha would even let him in the front door. He had the money. It was finding someone who would help that was hard. For the hero of Wave, I'll make him free. You saved our country and helped rid us of that monster Gato. Wave will forever be in your debt. The man gave a low bow as if Naruto were his master. Naruto could not believe it. He was the hero of Wave. He wondered if that was the reason all those girls were staring at him. Well, shit. Sir, are you sure? Wave is still recovering from Gato's regime? Do you really want to do all this for free? Yes, I lost many a friend to that fuck Gato. You avenged their deaths for me. For that I am grateful. Giving you free clothes is the least I can do for you. As soon as Naruto handed him the designs, the man ran to the back to begin making them. Naruto then began walking through town until he found an old weapons shop. He decided that kunai knives weren't exactly the best weapon for other ranges of combat besides throwing. He went inside to find one of the most amazing assortments of weapons he had ever seen. He could only imagine what that girl who runs the weapon shop that he usually buys fro would do if she saw this place. On one shelf there were beautifully designed axes that could probably cut someone in half. On another shelf were staffs that could probably break someone's bones. He kept on looking around until he stopped at a door. Something seemed to call to him. He walked inside the door and found a completely new arrangement. Here were beautifully ornamented weapons that echoed a call of power. But only one weapon caught his eye. It was a beautiful curved sword. The handle curved towards the front. The pommel only covered one side. But the blade looked as if it was made of water. Yet the blade had a solid form. The blue that was the blade had odd ornamental designs all over it. Think water sword from Prince of Persia warrior within. He reached for it, it was calling to him. Just as he was ready to pick up the blade. And oh, don't touch it! But it was too late. Naruto had grabbed his sword. Nothing happened, but the sword felt right in his hands. The man was shocked. No one had ever been able to pick up that sword. Every other person had their arms sliced to bits by a whirlpool created by the blade. Sir, what is your name? If this child was who he thought he was, then the blade in fact was his. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. The man gasped, and Uzumaki yet lived. He had spent years in this country, waiting, hoping that an Uzumaki was still alive. Why do you ask, sir? My name is Toshiro Kusagana. My family originated in Whirlpool. We were the greatest weapon makers in all of the lands. The sword you hold was the product of my clan and yours, our arts in sword making, and the Uzumaki ability to use the elements. Only a member of the Uzumaki clan can use it though. My clan can hold the weapon, but the weapon is impossible for our clan to use. After Whirlpool's destruction, a few members of my clan left to Konoha. The last Uzumaki also went to Konoha. We were all so young, and we saw our whole village slaughtered by a monster. What destroyed your village, if I may ask? Naruto wanted to know what thing had the power to destroy the village that his family came from. He turned around to face the man. Well, it was Wa. The man jumped back and pointed at Naruto. Tch that ei. He was pointing to Naruto's Sharingan. Naruto was trying to deactivate it, but he had no knowledge of what Kyuubi did to give him the Dōjutsu in the first place. What, my Sharingan? Why are you so scared of it? Because the one who destroyed our village, the one who raped the Uzumaki clan head, the one who killed all the Uzumakis leaving only his daughter alive, was Madara Uchiha. And if my assumptions are correct considering you wear a Konoha headband on your arm, your grandfather. Naruto was shocked. Was he really related to that man? And Madara Uchiha was a monster given human flesh. Was he really the son of one born from rape? Was he really the grandchild of the same man who forced Kyuubi-chan to attack his village? If he in fact was the grandchild of that monster, he would see to it that Madara Uchiha was destroyed. Once and for all. If I am related to him, can I ask you something? Who was his daughter? His daughter was the most dangerous member of the Uzumaki clan. She was only 9, but she managed to fight Madara Uchiha and remove one of his eyes. I only hope she is still alive. A question of my own, why do you have 4 eyes? Naruto then proceeded to tell him what happened. When the story was done, the man decided he would come to Konoha, if only to honor the alliance their clans possessed. Naruto was walking around town looking for a ramen stand. Ramen. He remembers when he first tried it. Ayam was such a sweet girl. She always stared at him while he was eating. It was certainly not uncommon for girls to stare at his whisker marks. He wondered what she was thinking right now. With Ayam. Ayam had just sneezed. I wonder who's talking about me. Maybe it's... No, it couldn't be Naruto. Ayam had a little crush on the blonde Gaki. She was 3 years his senior and she was falling for him hard. She fell for him about a month after she found him in an alley. Flashback. Ayam and her father were walking back to their shop. It was currently snowing. Ayam was only carrying a few bags while her father was lugging the cart that held the materials for the ramen. Ayam was only 8. She had no friends since she spent most if not all of her time working in the ramen stand since her mother died. He was walking past an alley when she heard a trash can fall over. She turned and looked to find a boy no older than 5 wearing only rags, huddled up in a pile of snow. Daddy, there's a boy here in the snow. Come quick. Her father ran to her side. They were only about 20 feet until they reached their stand, so he left the cart unchecked. When he got to where his daughter was, he had the most horrified face she had seen him ever wear. Ayam, run to the stand and unlock the doors. I'll carry him inside. Ayam did as her father said and ran to the stand. When she opened the door, she turned on the heat, knowing the little boy would be freezing. Her father came in seconds later and placed him on the couch. Daddy, why was the little boy in the snow with no clothes on? Won't his mom and dad be upset? Ayam did not know that the boy was an orphan, nor did she realize that he had been beaten and left in the middle of an alley to die. Tucci wanted to keep it that way for a while. Jirananen, the little boy was waking up and began to open his eyes. Ayam and Tucci got closer to the boy to make sure he was okay. When he opened his eyes, he blinked them twice and then, H. He jumped off the couch and ran under the table shaking like a leaf, mostly out of fear. Ayam had never seen a boy so hurt before. He was only 3 years younger than her, and he looked like he had been beaten repeatedly. Daddy, why does that boy look like he has been beaten? He isn't even old enough to defend himself. Her father took her into another room and explained everything to her. When her father was done, she ran to the little boy, grabbed him out from under the table, and hugged him to her chest. Naruto was terrified. The little girl grabbed him and was now squeezing him. She's trying to choke me to death. Let me go. No, Ayam was trying her best to show the boy affection. Let me go. Naruto was sobbing. He was so afraid. No, I'm not going to hurt you. After 5 minutes of struggle, he finally gave in and let her hug him. He fell asleep in her embrace. Ayam just kept holding him to her while stroking his hair. She looked at the little boy her father called Naruto. She looked at the boy's lips and wondered what they felt like. She placed her finger on her own lips before feeling his. Her lips were soft, but his lips seemed chapped. She wondered what it would feel like if she kissed him. She got her lips closer to his before kissing him, waking him up. When she finished her 5-second long kiss, she saw that his eyes were wide open and he had an enormous blush. She smiled at him, which sent him over the edge. Thump. Daddy. Naruto-kun is not moving. When her father got into the room, she explained what happened, causing her father to crack up laughing. Kai. Ayam remembered how the next day, Anbu came to their shop and ordered them to hand over Naruto. Her father refused, saying that unless Naruto got an apartment, he would be staying with them. A month later, a few drunks broke into the store while her father was out. She was so happy Naruto saved her that day. Flashback. Ayam was washing the dishes when the door to the stand was kicked open. 2 drunks came waddling in and destroyed the kitchen. Where is the demon brat? Tell us now, you fucking bitch. The less drunk of the 2 grabbed her throat and shoved her to a wall. Whi don we mak her wan tail uz, replied the other drunk with a lecherous grin on his face. The other drunk agreed and was about to start molesting her when he had a knife shoved into the arm he held her with. Don't you dare touch her, you fucking faggot. Naruto was severely pissed. He hated rapists and child molesters more than anything. The only person who was more dangerous than him was Jiraiya when it came to rapists and child molesters. Naruto ripped the knife out of the man's arm, making sure that the man could never use it again. He then charged at the other man and buried the blade in his ribcage, eliciting a drunken scream before he fell over from the pain. The other drunk, who was clutching his arm, ran towards the blonde, intent on killing him. Ayam took a nearby ladle and threw it at the man, hitting him in the head. The man turned around and ran towards Ayam, but he didn't make it 5 feet before Naruto hit the man in the knee with a bat they had brought in, forcing the knee to bend backwards. The man's head smashed hard enough into the ground to knock him unconscious. The other drunk grabbed Naruto and stabbed him right through the arm with a knife he had brought with him. He then began to advance on Ayam with a lecherous grin. I'm going to fuck ya, you fucking whore. The man grabbed Ayam by the hair and threw her to the ground while ripping off part of her shirt. The man started getting closer and was about ready to lick Ayam's face when someone grabbed his tongue. Ayam turned to see that it was Naruto. His next words terrified the drunk whose tongue he was holding. For trying to do dirty one so beautiful and clean, Naruto raised his head a bit so the drunk could look into his cold, merciless eyes. I'll rip your tongue out at the seam. Naruto yelled out the last part as he dug his fingers deeper into the drunk's mouth, before ripping his entire tongue right out. Ahahaha! The drunk had blood running down his mouth as he screamed before he was kicked in the face by Naruto, sending him headfirst into the oven, knocking him out cold. Ayam looked at the blood-covered blonde. He had risked his life to save hers. She had never met anyone who would ever do that for her besides her father. This boy, who she had barely known a month, who was terrified of getting a hug from her, had just risked his life for her. Ayam Ichiraku was in love with Naruto Uzumaki. Ayam wanted so badly to tell him her feelings, but she thought he would reject her the moment she tried. She was so self-conscious about being rejected since she never had a boyfriend. She only wished Naruto would come back from his C rank. He wanted to get Naruto before any of the other girls got to him. She turned around to see her father. Ever since the incident where Naruto saved her life, her father had managed to gain enough support from the various clans and a few civilians to gain an upper seat on the village council. In 1 week, I will need you to come to a council meeting. I know you usually hate them, but I think you will like this 1 inch. Why, father? Her father gave her a mischievous grin. You'll see. With Anko and Kurenai. Anko and Kurenai were talking about missions and about little things they knew about Naruto in between. They were about ready to leave when an Anbu came up to them. Kurenai Yuhi Anko Mitarashi, the Hokage has requested that in a week's time you be present at a council meeting. He knows how much you hate them, but he gave me this letter to give you too. After handing them the letter, he shunshined off. Kurenai and Anko looked at each other before looking at the letter. They both opened the letter and began reading. After finishing, they jumped up in the air, hugging each other in a fangirl squeal. The letter dropped to the ground, revealing its contents. Dear Anko and Kurenai, I realize how much both of you like Naruto, but neither of you will make a move on him for fear that you will hurt each other. Luckily, we have a solution to this problem. Naruto has a new bloodline. I expect to see both of you in the council meeting at week's end. Sincerely, Sarutobi. P.S. Do not rape Naruto when he walks through the gates. Hinata's room. Hinata was currently holding her Naruto plushie that she had made from stealing a bit of Naruto's hair. Okay, she stole about half the hair on his head. Hinata was absolutely in love with Naruto. Ever since she started the academy and she saw how much he struggled and how far he was willing to go to succeed. Her love was final when she had fallen and cut open her knee and Naruto came and tore off part of his t-shirt to bandage it. When he finished bandaging it, he kissed it better. She continuously stalked Naruto, even when he was in the showers. Hinata was about ready to raid Naruto's house for his used chopsticks when the door to her room opened. Standing there was her mother and father, both with sheepish grins on their faces. Hi Hinata. We have some interesting news for you I think you will like. Hinata knew that when her father said things like that, he went to great lengths to make sure it was good. We have set you up in an arranged marriage with Naruto Uzumaki. Waichao. Now I don't have Tio sneak into his house and feel him up when I'm horny. Realizing what she said and seeing the horrified look on her father's face, she blushed a new shade of red before fainting. She woke up hours later where her parents explained Naruto's current situation, shocking Hinata with realizations and disgusting her before her parents explained the points that disgusted her. When they were finished, they left the room, leaving an extremely happy Hinata to her sexual fantasies. Uchiha Compound. Suzuri Uchiha had a tanner complexion than most members of her family. She had beautiful long onyx hair. Her onyx-colored eyes were also very different from the rest of her family. Hers shined like a black jewel in the moonlight. She was tied with Tenten Kuzugana for Kunoichi of the Year. She ended up with a full Kunoichi team that were serious fangirls to Niji Hyuga, the rookie of last year's graduating class. Most girls were head over heels for the rookie of the year who was older than them. Suzuri was head over heels for the dobe who was younger than her. He fell in love with him the moment she saw his face and determined sky-blue eyes. Suzuri Uchiha was the genius of the now only dozen-member Uchiha clan. She was about 9 months older than Sasuke and only a year older than her crush Naruto Uzumaki. She had seen what many of her clan members did to Naruto. She was glad her brother Itachi had killed most of the clan. He left alive the Uchiha members that tried to help Naruto, which was about 12 members. She had killed her best friend that night when she tried to kill her to gain the Manjikyu. Her friend was also her cousin on her father's side. Her friend tried to murder her to gain the Manjikyu so she could kill Naruto to avenge the death of her mother in the Kyuubi attack. She killed her friend and gained the Manjikyu. She was 13 years old and was starting to lose the ability to see. She wishes that she could be with Naruto so badly that she tries to learn how to use her Manjikyu better to impress him. But all her training will be for nothing once she goes blind in about a year's time. She was about ready to perform a few Katan Jutsu thinking that a fire show would impress Naruto. She was interrupted by her father. Suzuri, I have something to discuss with you that I think you will enjoy. Ever since the Uchiha purge, her father has become a lot less cold. He plays pranks every now and again but mostly settles for telling jokes and waking us up in odd ways. She wanted to kill her father for how he woke her up last time. He woke her up with a flick to the head and then cast a genjutsu of Naruto saying he loves her. She jumped out of bed and ran to Naruto to kiss him and drag him to bed where she would have made love to him for hours. But when she was about ready to touch him, she ended him running out the window and ended up landing in a pool her father conveniently placed outside her window. Yes, father. I wish for you to attend a council meeting in a week's time. I believe you will like the topic discussed there. Her father turned around to leave until, he threw her an object that was black in color. She caught it, only for it to explode in her face, releasing the nastiest stench she had ever smelt. Dad, you are so dead when I get my hands on you. Suzuri proceeded to run after her father, who was laughing like a maniac. With Yugao and Hana. Yugao Yuzuki and Hana Inuzuka were the best of friends. They, along with their two other best friends Kurenai and Anko, had a thing for the local Jinchuriki. Yugao and Hana were born on the same day. They hang out in all their free time, and most of their hanging out involves stalking Naruto. They both remember how they fell for the gaki. They thanked the heavens that the boy 6 years their junior did what he did. Flashback. Yugao and Hana just finished celebrating getting into ANBU. They were both 14 when they passed the test to get in. They were both on the same genin team with Heiei Gecko, who was just becoming jonin. They were now walking home after the party. They were about 4 blocks from their condo. They were surrounded by about 5 ANBU hopefuls who did not graduate. You girlies got some nerve rising through the ranks like that. Women should remain in their place, as are bitches. The leader of the group was only Chunin, but they were currently too wasted to do much. Yeah, I think we ought to show you girls what happens to women who leave their place. One of the guys knocked them to the ground while the others pinned them. I'm going to rape you little girls until you beg us for more. The leader of the group was walking forwards about ready to undo his pants when he got a trash can lid smashed into the side of his face before it ricocheted off and hit the ones holding down Yugao. She kicked them off her before stabbing them in their arms to pin them. She then kicked off the ones holding down Hana. Hana proceeded to shove her new Kodachi into their arms. They got up to finish off the other guy when they saw him holding up one Naruto Uzumaki. So Demon, you decided to help these young ladies from being raped. Well, guess what? No one stops me from having my fun. He was holding a kunai knife to Naruto's throat. Hana was wide-eyed. She saw that Naruto did in fact throw the trash can lid that hit the group's leader. But she had no idea how to help him now. Yugao was shocked. She had never liked the kid, seeing him only as the demon that killed her parents. But all her ideals changed when she saw Naruto throw that trash can lid that knocked the leader down. Now she was ashamed of herself for hating an innocent child. Neither of the two ANBU or his captor noticed him reach into his pants. Not even a second after he placed his hand in his pants did he rip out a kunai knife and shoved it into the man's groin. The man was now in serious pain. He saw that it was the demon brat who did it, but he decided to get rid of the two girls that humiliated him in the first place. He reached into his pouch to pull out an explosive note attached to a kunai. He threw it at the girls. Naruto noticed this and ran in front of the two girls. He got hit with the kunai as it exploded. Luckily, it was a low grade that the leader threw, so it did not kill him. Hana ran right to the injured boy's side with Yugao sliced off the leader's head. They saw him jump in front of a kunai to save them. He was certainly not a demon. At first, their affection for Naruto was only overprotective. But they continued stalking him and began to see not a boy, but a scarred man. They fell in love with the kid along with their friends Anko and Kurenai. They were about ready to go look for said persons when the same ANBU that dropped a letter off to Kurenai and Anko talked with them. He spoke for a bit before leaving a letter. The reactions and writings were the same as was with Kurenai and Anko. Sandame's office. Sarutobi was currently writing down various parentage, citizen, and clan forms. This was his type of paperwork. Ha ha ha. Let's see the council control me when I make these decisions. Sarutobi was as happy as Jiraiya at a mixed hot spring during a swimsuit contest. He decided that now was the perfect time to read his little orange book. 1 week later, Konoha Gates. Naruto was currently walking up to the village gates debating on whether or not to punch Zabuza or to slice him with his sword. When Zabuza saw his sword, he explained about the sword's great legends. The Mizuoni was apparently the finest water element sword to ever exist. It had a series of specialized hijitsu. The scrolls were brought to Konoha by Naruto's mother, but Zabuza was basically a fangirl when it came to the sword. He would not stop talking about the legends of the great Mizuoni. Finally, when they were about 20 feet from the main gates, he yelled at Zabuza. "I get it, the sword is awesome. Now shut the fuck up, you fanboy, before I shove the sword up your ass." Zabuza gasped. "How could you defile such a godly weapon by shoving it up my unworthy ass?" Haku was rubbing her temples at how annoying her father was when it came to legendary blades. She and Kyuubi were always talking with each other. Most of the subject was on how to seduce Naruto. Naruto stopped sleeping after the third day of waking up with Haku and Kyuubi sleeping in his tent. Naked. Now Naruto wasn't gay, he just held far too much respect for women to take advantage of them like that. He did not care how badly they wanted him, he was waiting until marriage, and the only way he was allowed to marry at 12 was if he had a new bloodline limit. Oh boy, is Naruto in the shit. But man, he is one lucky bastard. Toshiro had come with them and was carrying a special scroll that held his entire shop. He made a special seal on his shop that placed it in a storage scroll. It was about the same size as a summon scroll. Naruto was currently running through what Kyuubi-chan had told him in regards to his dojutsu. His Manjikyu Sharingan would only cause him to go blind if he forced a Hijitsu technique when he had very little chakra. Naruto had figured out how to turn off his Sharingan after a week of chakra control exercises. He could use the Hijitsu of the Manjikyu only a set number of times a day with his chakra reserves. He could use Amaterasu 4 times, Tsukuyomi 6 times, Kamui 3 times, or Susanoo 2 times. After using the techniques, he should have enough left for a few jutsus, but not much. If it was passed on in his family, it would just be like how the Sharingan gains its tomos. His Raikon Byakugan had been purified by demonic chakra, so the usual personalities would not manifest in future generations. But he now had to worry about a second personality that was essentially the opposite of everything Naruto stood for. The second personality was also knows everything the real holder of the personality knows. If the personality gained control, he could regain control. He could use the heavenly archangel, the punishing penance, and the hellish wrath. The techniques themselves don't use much chakra. The Raikon Byakugan is now a stage gained through means similar to how the Sharingan gains tomos. The only difference in form in regards to the Byakugan and the Raikon Byakugan is that the pupil is far more visible. His Akuma Rinnegan was also purified. He will not wither away by not giving in to natural body functions. Kyuubi decided to remove that strength, viewing that a human not giving in to what a body must do is basically a human calling themselves God. Naruto has been training with Haku-chan on Ice Element when she wasn't trying to feel him up. Kyuubi explained to Naruto the various paths. Naruto knew he would have to resort to the Rinnegan's darker powers, but would only use bodies if he found it ethically right. He had already created a new summon. It was a dead lizard when he found it. When he turned it into a summon, he accidentally put the original soul back in it. Luckily, it grew attached to him. He made the lizard his personal summon until he gets an animal path. He could summon it via a seal on his palm that had the kanji for lizard. The difference between the Rinnegan and the Akuma Rinnegan is that while the regular Rinnegan is a metallic purple in color, the Akuma Rinnegan takes on a tan color with the color around the pupil being a golden brown, but in the golden brown it looked like fire was burning. Check profile. His Kurai Saishugen was not changed by much. Naruto would still remember the faces of all those he had killed, but it would not haunt his memories constantly. He would mostly get random nightmares. Naruto had already had his Kurai Saishugen memorize his summon seal, just in case he needed to recast it. He had already used it to break down storage and explosive seals. The main difference in form as far as the Saishugen and the Kurai Saishugen is that the regular Saishugen pupil looks like a mass of blue energy constantly shifting around. The Kurai Saishugen has a tinge of gold swirling around with the blue. Naruto was still walking when he bumped into someone. He looked up to see the eyes of Hayashi Hyuga. Naruto started trying to sputter out an apology. Then Hayashi started laughing. "Ha ha 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 ha. Don't worry, Naruto, I'm not going to bite your head off for a small mistake. I actually came here to talk to you in a very important matter." Naruto was as confused as the rest of his group. The Hyuga head wanted to talk to him, the demon brat? What did Hayashi Hyuga want? "If I may ask, Hyuga-sama, what is it that you need my student for?" Kakashi did not know much about the Hyugas other than the fact that they had an extremely powerful Dōjutsu and that they were pretty cold towards people. Kakashi did not know if they harbored any ill will towards Naruto or not. You may all stay for this, for it will become public knowledge this afternoon. Naruto's company nodded. Now Naruto, all your life you have never known your parents. I'm sure you often wonder if they are living or dead. Well, I can happily say that your mother is still alive. Naruto looked to the ground at this. Guess she didn't want to be associated with the demon brat. Hayashi immediately realized how he took it and was ashamed of it. No, Naruto, your mother loves you very much. She has been in a coma for the last 12 years and has finally woken up. I can honestly say she would love nothing more than to be with her son. Hayashi explained to Naruto. Naruto looked up, clear happiness in his eyes. All four of them. Hayashi had heard about what happened to Naruto thanks to Kyuubi, who he assumed was the red-haired girl ogling Naruto right now. It seems Naruto has a fan club, but it was definitely going to take a while to get used to Naruto having four eyes. Where is my mom? Naruto wanted to see his mother after never seeing her once for the last 12 years. Hayashi only grabbed Naruto's shoulder and turned him towards one of the gates. Standing next to the end of the gate was a red-haired woman with emerald green eyes. She was wearing a long black dress. She was also wearing a large green jacket that hid but complemented her C-cup bust. She had a cute face surrounded by her crimson red hair. Naruto could only stare as the person Hayashi identified as his mother walked towards him. His mother was alive, she still loved him, and here she was. Naruto's mother stopped right in front of Naruto, easily a foot taller than him. She knelt down to his level, looking directly into his eyes. Not even a second later, she jumped forward and wrapped her arms around him, sobbing into his orange jumpsuit. I'm so sorry, Naruto. I'm sorry I couldn't raise you, my child. I'm sorry you had to live an orphan. I'm sorry you have been beaten since. Kushina was cut off by her son, embracing her and shushing her. Kushina just continued to sob in her son's chest. Naruto had not even shed a tear. Sasuke and Sakura were confused. Naruto had just been reunited with his mother after not having won his entire life, and yet Naruto had not even shed a tear. Kakashi. Not that I like seeing Naruto crying, but why isn't Naruto crying? Kakashi looked at them. Have any of you seen Naruto cry before? While confused by this statement, they shook their heads no. Naruto has not cried since he was 3 years old. He knew that crying would only encourage the villagers. It would not help him. Naruto stopped crying after a beating that went on for hours before we found him. I was the one to walk up to his still form. There were old tear stains, but those were probably hours old. That was the last time I saw anything on Naruto reminiscent of tears. The last time he cried was 3 hours before he turned 3. He hasn't cried in so long. He's forgotten how to. Sasuke and Sakura were appalled. To forget how to cry. Haku and Kyuubi both had tears in their eyes. Zabuza was clenching his fist in anger at the villagers. Not even mistreated children that horribly. Toshiro was ready to do to the leaf what Madara did to Whirlpool. But he knew that it would upset Naruto. Kushina had just finished sobbing and was now just embracing her child as he rubbed her back to calm her down. After 5 minutes of Kushina sobbing, she released her hold on her son before taking a deep breath. Naruto smirked at his mother before talking. I suppose you'll want some information on what I have done with my life. Naruto knew that since his mother was in a coma for so long, she would be curious about how he has been. I would love to hear about how your life has been, she sighed before putting in annoyance in a very Naruto-ish fashion. But the council wishes to speak with you in regarding recent events. Sigh, somehow I knew the council would want to talk to me about having 4 eyes. Gives them a reason to try and kill the demon brat. But I guess it's inevitable. So what are we waiting for? Let's go. Naruto stood up and grabbed his mother's hand, dragging her all the way to the Hokage Tower. Hayashi chuckled. Naruto was so much like his mother it wasn't even funny. He remembers when Kushina was so excited about Minato being named Yondaime that she basically dragged their whole graduating class down to Ichiraka Ramen. He noticed that they were almost out of sight, so he turned towards the rest of the group. Lord Hokage would also like those present to be present at the council meeting. Jiren and Hayashi chuckled at their downtrodden looks at having to be at a council meeting. Hayashi then began the trek to the Hokage Tower, followed by Team 7 and the newcomers. Things are going to get interesting. Council chambers. The council was currently discussing the topic of Naruto Uzumaki. There were three sides to the issue of said blonde. One side wanted Naruto killed to prevent the beast from gaining control. This side was dominated by most of the civilian council and the two elders. The civilian council was mostly made up of pompous fools who thought they could control shinobi affairs. They were the ones who set up the assassination attempt on Naruto when he was 3 and had a law passed that anyone who tried to adopt him would be executed. They couldn't get enough support to execute the child, so they decided to just settle for ruining his life. They viewed Naruto as a threat to their power. Another side, run by Danzo, wanted Naruto to be turned into a weapon. As soon as it was discovered that Naruto was a Jinchuriki, Danzo practically jumped out of his council seat and demanded he be placed in his root division. He was immediately shot down by the Hokage and all the clan heads, as well as a few civilian council members. He tried countless times afterwards to gain the Gaki as his personal weapon. Once he found about Naruto's new bloodlines, he was even more adamant. The last group was run by those who wanted Naruto to grow up as he see fit. This sect was run by the clan heads and a few of the civilian council. The civilians who managed to help keep Naruto safe were the Ichirakus, the Kuzuganas, and about 3 others. The clan council was completely for helping Naruto out of the hell that the civilians were forcing him to live. Most of the clan council has tried in some way, shape, or form to help the blonde demon container, only to be shot down by the civilian council. Since Naruto wasn't a shinobi at the time, they could not do much. The council was still discussing when the doors to the council chamber slammed open, revealing Naruto Uzumaki and a red-haired woman that seemed to make the clan council uneasy, as well as a few civilians. Standing next to Naruto Uzumaki was the last person you wanted to piss off. The Red Death Kushina Uzumaki. "Sorry, old man, we just got back a few minutes ago." Naruto was panting, so no one had seen his sudden transformation. "Learn some respect, Demon Br Crash." The fat counselor's sentence was cut off by a hard kick from Kushina that sent the fat ass right into the wall. "If anyone, and I mean anyone, insults my son again." Kushina raised her head enough to show her cold green eyes while releasing Ki, "I'll kill you." The civilian council was now completely terrified. Kushina Uzumaki was not one to piss off. Their fears were quelled when Tenten Kuzugana started talking. "Oh my god. You," pointing to Naruto, "are the son of the Red Death?" Tenten ran up to Naruto and started shaking his still exhausted form while yelling, "Please, please, 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 can you get me an audience with your mother? Please, I'll do a New York thing." Tenten stopped shaking Naruto when she saw that he had 4 eyes, each one with a different form. The top right one had an onyx color. The eye below it was Naruto's normal colored eye, just a bit lighter in shade. His normal left eye was replaced by the white eye of a Hyuga, and his top left eye was a light shade of purple with black rings surrounding the pupil. Tenten was sputtering at the sight of Naruto's eyes, so much so that she forgot what she was asking him. Her father, Tensei Kuzugana, got up and escorted her back to her seat. The discussions were about to begin when the door opened, revealing Hayashi Hyuga with Team 7 and 4 newcomers. One was a brown-haired male with a scar running down the side of his face. He was currently wearing a blacksmith suit while carrying a very big storage scroll in the same fashion as Jiraiya of the Sannin. The other was a large, well-built male with bandages covering most of his face and had a giant guillotine on his back. The next was a red-haired female that was wearing tight black short with black-colored short dress that had long slits on the side. For a shirt, she wore a tight-fitting shirt with long sleeves that went about 6 inches past her hands. She had her red hair in a fashion similar to the Hyuga genius Niji, the minor difference being that her bangs were let loose. The last person was a young ebony-haired girl wearing a long dress, but she had on an extremely tight shirt that showed off her belly button. She had on an open vest that only reached just below her armpits. Her hair was arranged in a bun. "Sorry we were late. Zabuza needed to check on something. Apparently his wife is in Konoha, and he needed to check the apartment complex she was in. Hayashi had met strange people, but Zabuza's wife certainly takes the cake. She looks like an older Haku really. But she acted like Hinata when she was Naruto high. The thought scared him. Hinata may be shy, but when it came to Naruto, do not piss her off. The last person who made that mistake couldn't walk for a month and was pissing out blood for 3 weeks. I need to make sure she is okay. She said she'd be here in. Zabukeun the counselors looked out the door to see a black-haired woman with a small bump in her belly wearing a large dress walk in. Zabukeun, only 3 more weeks until we get the tests back. Then we'll find out if it's a boy or girl. Everyone looked at Zabuza confused. You could go to the hospital and find out the gender in 10 minutes. My wife's family has old traditions that she likes to follow. It's a little odd, but I still love her. Got a problem with that? Everyone noticeably shuddered. As we were saying, we are here to discuss the topic of Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto, Team 7, and the newcomers, I will call them newcomers until I separate them, left the room along with several people who also were brought by the council. Those who had been brought by council members were Hinata Hyuga, Suzuri Uchiha, Kurenai Yuhi, Anko Mitarashi, Hana Inuzuka, Yugao Yuzuki, and Tenten Kusagana. Naruto was feeling very uncomfortable right now. He was getting lecherous stares from Kyuubi, Haku, Hinata, Anko, Kurenai, Yugao. Hana, Suzuri was noticeably having difficulty seeing him. Kyuubi seemed to notice as well. Kyuubi walked over to her and took her to the side. She did a few hand seals before placing her hand on Suzuri's forehead. Suzuri then fell asleep. Kyuubi walked over to Naruto. Naruto-kun, I kind of need to speak to you in private. Kyuubi sent a look at the glaring girls that immediately seemed to avert their gazes. It's extremely important to me. Naruto knew that Kyuubi liked him, but right now she was being completely and totally serious. Naruto nodded his head and Kyuubi led him to a closet. Before she opened the closet, she did a few hand seals that Naruto knew were genjutsu seals. She then touched the door with her pointer before opening it and dragging Naruto inside. Naruto closed his eyes at the sudden rush of air before it stopped. When Naruto opened his eyes, he expected to see the inside of a closet, but instead he saw a beautiful forest. The sky was a dark blue, showing that it was after dark. The moon itself was a beautiful shade of light yellow glow that shone through the clouds just passing above its bottom section. The ground was covered in beautiful lilies and roses of all shades. He turned around to see a great waterfall that ran into a clear blue lake. The lake was teeming with fish, and the rim of the lake was surrounded by water lilies and frog pads. The most beautiful thing, though, was the spiral rock that looked like it had a staircase going up the spiral. A snake-like arrangement of rocks led up to the spiral. Before Naruto could make any more observations, he was being dragged across the rocks and being led to the spiral. They ran up the spiral. When they got to the top, they admired the scenery for a bit. Kyuubi-chan, where are we and why are we here? Naruto was severely confused. He had never seen such a beautiful place. It echoed with a natural beauty that no one's hand could ever achieve. Kyuubi looked at him in the eyes with the softest and most loving expression he had ever seen. Naruto-kun, 12 years ago I was taken from here. This is the Kitsune realm. The reason why I brought you here was to give you my love. Naruto was shocked and confused now. How could bringing him here possibly show him love? When I awoke from being sealed inside of you, I saw your life. I saw all of your torment. I saw how many times you were beaten. I saw how at the moment you turned 3 you forced yourself to never cry again. I saw who you were, and I fell in love with you. I have lived for over 107 years. I was never able to fall for any of my kind. But due to me being the heir to the Kitsune family, I must choose a husband. I must choose a mate. Kyuubi sighed before continuing. Naruto, Kyuubi is only my title, my name that was given to me by my mother and father. A name to a Kitsune is extremely valuable. We keep our names a secret to all. We are identified by our accomplishments or titles until we tell one person our name. The one whom we tell our name to will become our mate. They will become the only person that we may make love to, the only one whose children we can bear. Naruto Uzumaki, I ask you, as I give you my name, will you have me? Naruto was shocked. The Kyuubi was asking him to be her husband. Naruto did not know what to do. He opened his mouth only to have Kyuubi's finger be placed on his mouth. Naruto-kun, I will tell you my name, but the choice to become my mate is yours. You will have 3 days to decide on what you wish to do. If you say yes, I am yours. If you say no, you may never speak my name to anyone. Naruto nodded his head in understanding, thanking Kami that he did not have to decide right then. Naruto-kun. She pressed her body to his. My name. She brought her head next to his ear and whispered, is Kisi. Naruto blacked out as they were pulled out of the Kitsune realm. With Naruto and Kisi had just returned to the room and only a minute passed there. They walked back with their group. Naruto saw Suzuri waking up and went over to her to see what was going on. Suzuri POV. Suzuri had just woken up from that jutsu that the red-haired girl placed on her. The girl said she knew she had a hard time seeing. She said she could fix it. Suzuri was so desperate to impress Naruto-kun that she risked her sai to achieve it. She began to open her eyes, expecting to see things blurrily. Instead, she saw things just as, if not more clearly than before she gained the Manjikyu. She looked up to see Naruto walking towards her. General POV. Naruto was walking towards Suzuri. He wanted to know how she was doing. He saw less and less of her as the years went by. He was curious as to how she was doing. Hey Suzuri, how are you doing? Suzuri looked at Naruto and noticed that he had the black onyx eye of a Sharingan user in the eye above his usual right eye. Now believing her earlier conversation with her father. Hey Naruto-kun, can I talk to you about your Sharingan? Suzuri wanted to absolutely ravish him until he was tired from making love so much, but thanks to her older brother Itachi's training, she was able to quell that desire. It did not do anything to quell the desire she had for Naruto. Sure, I have some questions of my own. The two sat down and conversed on various Sharingan secrets. Naruto was astounded that she had the Manjikyu Sharingan. Then Naruto asked the question that was eating away at him. How are we related? Suzuri expected something like this. Luckily, her father told her of his mother's heritage. He refused to tell her about his father's heritage. Yet, Naruto-kun, the relationship between us is extremely distant. Our relation is about 1/200th of our gene pool. We are so distantly related we can't even be considered cousins. Much to her relief, she did not think she could go on living if she could not be with Naruto because blood relation was too close. But my father knew about your mother's heritage. He decided to tell me knowing that I would be able to tell you, although I would have to explain a little history to you. Naruto nodded his head. Okay, we will have to start off with the Uchiha clan over 100 years ago. The Uchiha clan was enemies with the Senju clan of the forest. We were rivals in all things. Back then, it was the strongest of the clan who led it. During that time, we had a few separate branches of the clan. But these branches were more so separate relatives that had a farther relation to each other but still carried the name Uchiha. The total number of Uchihas numbered close to about 500 clan members. Each branch believed in different ideals. The branches were numbered through strength. There were 7 branches in total. Each branch specialized in something. The 7th branch specialized in armed combat. In terms of close combat, they had no equals within the clan. The 6th branch specialized in long-range support. They could fire an arrow from over a mile away and still hit the target they intend to hit. The 5th branch specialized in medicine and poisons. They had books in regards to various herbs and medical techniques, but they could create the perfect poison as well. The 4th branch specialized in infiltration. If they did not want you to see them, you would not see them. The 3rd branch specialized with mid-range support. They were greatly specialized in the use of fire jutsu and pyrotechnics. The 2nd branch specialized in combat by use of other forms of ninjutsu, taijutsu, or genjutsu. They never used techniques that they learned themselves. They only used techniques that they had copied from others. The final branch was the 1st branch. They were the only branch to implement parts of all the other branches into their combat. The 7th through 2nd branches were essentially separate clans of Uchiha, and the 1st branch was the binding agreement of them. But the 1st branch was extremely possessive of the Sharingan. They believed that breeding within the clan would produce perfect offspring. The leaders of the 1st branch copulated. The two of them were never apart, and they had known each other since the beginning of their lives. They were born from the same mother and father and were taught that to bear children of one who was outside the clan was the greatest dishonor they could ever achieve. The two of them were not just brother and sister, they were twins. They had copulated, saying that their pure-blood offspring would become the strongest of all Uchihas. Their first birthing bore two sons. The first of the twins was named Madara Uchiha. Naruto clenched his fist at the name. The second twin was Izuna Uchiha. The two of them were named as the beginning of a future Uchiha clan. 9 months after the birth of their sons, a member of the 7th branch offered their child, a girl by the name of Eiju Uchiha, to be the bride of one of the two twins. She was raised by the first branch, but held the ideals of the other branches that opposed inbreeding. Madara Uchiha had been going blind from overuse of his Manjikyu Sharingan. When he finally went blind, he did the unthinkable. He murdered his brother and took his eyes. He became the first Uchiha immortal, for gaining the Manjikyu will give the user immortality. Madara continued to wage his war with the Senju. After 20 years of life, the leader of the Senju clan, Hashirama Senju, came to Madara asking for peace. The only reason he agreed was because all the other branches wanted peace. Years later, he was beginning to believe it was time for Eiju to fulfill the duty his parents had taught them. But he did not know that his clansmen had fallen in love with the Senju leader after his first wife died in childbirth. She had been pregnant with his child only a week when Madara found out. Madara was disgusted with the fact she wished to bear the child of one outside the clan, even more disgusted that she wished to bear the child of his archfoe. He sought to punish her, and to make sure that the abomination in her womb would never come to exist. Madara Uchiha, after binding Eiju, after breaking her arms and legs, after slashing out her eyes, raped and murdered his clansmen. When Hashirama discovered the body of his lover, mutilated and violated by her own clansmen, he swore revenge. He chased Madara to what is now the Valley of the End and fought against Madara and a giant black nine-tailed fox. Naruto flinched at that. There was another Kyuubi? Madara was thought to have been defeated by the Senju leader, leaving no trace left of the black Kyuubi. It was believed that Madara had killed Hashirama's only child with Eiju, but he only killed the second child. Naruto went wide-eyed at that. A child with the possibilities of both the Sharingan and Mokuton had survived. The first child of Eiju and Hashirama was not known until recently, after the child had fathered a new generation of Uchiha, and soon, a new generation of Senju. Suzuri sighed. Naruto, the only child of Eiju Uchiha and Hashirama Senju, was Urahei Uchiha. He married a young woman named Tsubomi Haruno. Their only child was Fugaku Uchiha, my father. If Naruto's eyes could get any wider, let them get wider. By now the Mokuton Jutsu that was passed down in its dormant form needed only one more generation to manifest fully into a Kekkei Genkai. The Mokuton Jutsu, however, was only a 1 out of 3 chance of manifesting in one of my father's children. Since the male determines which gender the child will have, it would either be the male or female to pass on the trait. If a male receives it, only his male children would have a chance to possess it. If a female possess it, then it could go either way since females can only give the female gene. Suzuri sighed for what seemed to be the 10th time already. Naruto, I am the last known possessor of the Mokuton bloodline. To prove this, she took out a seed and used her chakra to make it grow. Naruto was now having trouble remaining conscious. Just as he was about to ask more questions, the council room door opened to reveal a trembling Sandame. Why you all MMA Sikami in now? Not caring that the Sandame was trembling, everyone got up and walked into the council chambers, only to reveal that the walls were now covered in blood and the floors littered with the bodies of most of the civilian council, the 3 elders, and a large group of rude Anbyu. Mortified, they looked around to find Kushina Uzumaki standing over the bodies with her black katana. The katana looked like it was feeding off of the dead energy in the air from what Naruto could see. They looked around again to see the clan heads plus the Haruno, Kuzugana, Ichiraku, and the other 2 civilians council members who supported Naruto shivering together like a bunch of leaves in the wind. Kushina turned around to see her son with all 4 of his eyes staring at her. She smiled and said, "Sorry. They kind of pissed me off. Council is now in session. Kushina jumped off the table and proceeded to use a fire jutsu to burn all of the bodies and a wind jutsu to get rid of the ash and the smell of burnt flesh. Not being able to take any more shock that day, Naruto did a perfect impression of Hinata. Thump. It was at that moment that Hanabi Hyuga walked into the room. She saw Naruto and started poking him in the forehead. She then turned her head in the directions of all three groups in the room before looking at Naruto and speaking, "I think you broke him." The entire room face planted while Hayashi slapped himself in the forehead saying, "Just like her mother used to be." This caused the room to roar in laughter, leaving an unconscious Naruto and a very confused Hanabi. Naruto had just woken up from his shock-induced coma. The last thing Naruto remembered was walking into the council chambers to see his mother standing over a bunch of dead bodies. He had just finished a conversation with Suzuri-chan in the other room. Before that, he had also found out that the Kyuubi's name was Kisi. He also found out that the Kyuubi telling him her name was essentially offering her hand in marriage. The total amount of all these shocking revelations had sent Naruto's brain into overload. He had fainted in front of what was left of the council, and he was now waking up to see a pair of pale eyes barely different than Hinata-chan's, looking at his eyes. He just stared at the pale eyes of the unknown person until he decided to speak. Hi. The eyes he now noticed belonged to a young girl around the same age as the Hokage's grandson. She tilted her head in a very cute fashion that screamed, "Kawaii." Naruto smiled at her, which caused her to blush a little before she turned to Hayashi. "Daddy, can we keep him? He's cute." The young girl started petting Naruto's fuzzy hair and smiled an adorable smile before she was lifted off of Naruto's chest by her father, causing her to pout. Naruto got up and brushed himself off before he looked back at the council room. All the counselors that were not killed by his overly bloodthirsty mother were now sitting down with their guests standing right behind them. He noticed that Zabuza was now taking a seat at the table. There were several spaces open in the council room. He wondered if they would fill them or not. Now that the council is in session, we have come to discuss the matter that is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto looked at the Sandaime, wondering what the hell he was talking about. The aged Hokage knew that he was not the demon. Hell, he had even met the Kyuubi not even a few hours ago. So what the hell was going on? Tsuchi Ichiraku stood up to speak. Due to Naruto's status in being the last of his clan, he now falls under the CRA, Clan Restoration Act. It is also made more apparent now that he has a new bloodline, a powerful one at that. The rest of the council nodded while the girls in the room were wide-eyed for some reason. Naruto was severely confused, so he decided to start asking questions. "Hey old man, what do you mean new bloodline? I don't know if my new abilities can be considered new or not. And what is the CRA, and how exactly do I file under it? Hell, I didn't even know I was a part of a clan." The counselors only chuckled at Naruto's ignorance, and the girls in the room looked at him with a mischievous glint in their eyes. Naruto, he turned to look at his mother, who was scratching the back of her head much like he usually did. "I believe you will want to sit down for this one. It will definitely be a shock to you." Naruto decided to listen to his mother and went to sit down until his mother stopped him. "Naruto, your seat is over there." Naruto looked to where she was pointing. His seat was right in between Fugaku and Hayashi. Deciding to listen to his mother, he walked over to the seat and sat down. He noticed that Fugaku and Hayashi were planning something. And boy, did he have a bad feeling about this whole thing. He looked around, seeing the mischievous glints in many of the council's eyes. Naruto kept looking around until Sandaime began to speak. "Naruto, we are here to discuss your new condition, Kyuubi's freedom, as well as a few contracts that have been put in place by many of the council as well." Naruto was now confused. Condition, contracts? What the fuck was going on? Old man, I am a little confused in regards to what you were talking about. What condition are you talking about, and what do you mean contracts? The Sandaime only chuckled at Naruto's response. "Naruto, you may not have realized it, but your special condition in that you now have 4 eyes instead of 2 will be inherited by your future generations. Your children will also possess your unique abilities that your Dōjutsus possess." The Sandaime had to stifle a snicker at Naruto's confused reaction. "Okay. So what does all that mean, old man?" Naruto may have gotten some upgraded dojutsus, but he was still the dense blonde idiot. Sigh. This was going to take longer than he thought. Just as Sandaime began to speak, Zabuza decided to dumb it down. Look, Gaki, what the old man here is saying is that our four-eyed condition along with your new eyes will be passed on to your children. They will be passed on through your children as well, essentially making a new Kekkai Genkai. Naruto seemed to get the dumbed-down version better. Zabuza only hoped his daughter could get the Gaki to smarten up a bit more. Oh, okay. But what do you mean by contracts? As far as I know, I do not owe anybody anything. Naruto was really confused. What contracts were they talking about? Before he could begin asking more questions, his mother grabbed his shoulder. Naruto, sweetie. They are talking about marriage contracts. Silence. 1, 2, 3. What? What do you mean marriage contracts? Naruto was starting to hyperventilate again. Not even a week ago he had received 4 dojutsus that were slightly more powerful than the originals. Next he finds out his mother is alive. Kisi-chan is offering her hand in marriage, and now this is dropped on him. Before he could faint, he was slapped on the cheek to keep him up. Naruto, what we mean is that several of us have set up marriage contracts between you and our daughters. There are also several jonin that have come here to ask for your hand in marriage as well. Naruto looked around to see Hana, Yugao, Kurenai, and Anko with smirks in his direction. The counselors that had proposed the contracts with their daughters were Fugaku, Hayashi, Tuchi. Some officially made a contract for Hana, while Sarutobi made a contract for each of the jonin who asked to marry Naruto. The next bomb was dropped when Zabuza made a contract, since he was now made counselor due to his wife's bloodline. Naruto was trembling, he was confused and scared. Kisi-chan had just asked for his hand in marriage not even a half an hour ago. Well, Naruto, all we need now is your signature on these contracts, and then we are officially done. Sandaime was very happy. He knew there were many villagers who disliked Naruto. He thought perhaps Naruto would jump up and scream hallelujah for his good fortune at the moment. He did not expect Naruto's reaction. Naruto stood up. Most of the council thought that he would immediately sign the contracts. They did not expect him to look up and begin walking towards the council doors. Before he left the room, he turned around. I am not rejecting the offers, nor am I accepting them. I just need time to think. Naruto walked out of the council chambers, leaving several very stunned clan heads. Most boys in his position would accept the proposition without a second thought. Kushina looked at the counselors before she spoke. I will check on him and see what's up. She ran out of the room to follow her distressed child while the council began to deliberate. They did not get 2 sentences in before Tenten spoke up. Daddy, why didn't you put in a contract for me to marry Naruto? Tenten knew that getting married to Naruto would allow her to possibly train under Kushina Uzumaki. She wondered if her father was just late putting the contract in. Tenten, I did not put in your name to be possibly married to Naruto, because I see no reason as to why you would want to be married to him. Her father had not put her in because he knew she did not genuinely love Naruto. The thing that all of those who were placed on the contract had in common was that they already loved Naruto. Tenten got wide-eyed at that. There were 8 girls who loved Naruto, but she so wanted to be trained by Kushina. But Daddy, I think that over time I could come to love him. Surely you could. Her father stuck his hand up, silencing her. Tenten, I know the reason you want to marry Naruto is to be trained by Kushina Uzumaki, but I do not see that as a valid reason as to why you should marry Naruto. If you need any more proof as to why you should not marry Naruto, just look at the reasons that those who signed the contract love Naruto. The Kusagana head looked at the 8 girls in the room who had been placed in the contract. They looked at each other until Hinata stepped forward. Ah, Hinata, would you please tell us why you love Naruto? Hinata timidly nodded before speaking. I love Naruto Keikuin, because he is strong-willed and never gives up. The FF first time I met Naruto was on our FF first D-Day at the academy. He did not give up even though the TT teachers were so cruel to him. My love for Naruto only grew when he went out of his way to help me when I was injured. He used part of his own shirt to bandage a scrape I had. When he was finished he kissed it be better. I love Naruto-kun. And your reasons for wanting to marry him are shallow. Hinata sent a glare at Tenten, who noticeably flinched. Suzuri decided to step forward. Tenten, I love Naruto because he endured pain. He took every beating that members of my own clan gave him. I saw him take beatings from villagers, Genin, Chunin, Jonin, even a few Anbu. I love him because out of all the villagers in Konoha, he is the only one who is strong enough to endure this village and still keep a smile on his face. He lost his innocence, not that kind of innocence, before he was kicked out of the orphanage. My father tried so many times to adopt him, but every attempt was blocked by the civilian council. Tenten looked down as Ayam walked up. I love Naruto-kun because of what he did and had to endure. I found him half buried in the snow with little more than rags on. I noticed he had been recently beaten and asked my father about it. When he finished explaining to me, I ran into the room we had left him in and embraced him in a hug. Me hugging him absolutely terrified him. We let him stay in our house until the Sandame could get him an apartment. A month later, a couple of drunks broke into our house and attempted to rape me. Naruto-kun risked his life to stop them. That was the night I fell in love with him. Anko stepped forward next. I had just been deemed innocent by the Sandame for the crimes Orochimaru committed. I had been attacked by 3 civilian council members and they were going to rape me. Just as they were about to rip off my clothes, Naruto came out of nowhere and beat the shit out of the drunk one of the group. The other 2 tried to attack him from behind, but I threw a trash can at them, causing them to smash into the wall, killing them. I was about to help Naruto when he was thrown across the alley with a kunai in his chest. The counselor he was fighting tried to rape me. He was then brought to the ground when Naruto cut his legs. After the man was brought to his knees, Naruto killed him. He then fell over due to lack of blood. A genin tried to take Naruto, seeing him as a demon. I cut that chunin across the face until Anbu arrived and took us to the hospital. Tenten was shocked. Kurenai stepped forward next. I fell for Naruto-kun when we made him his first set of clothing that wasn't made out of rags. He was so cautious of the box that we had his present in. When he finally opened it, he was so adorable in how he played with it. But a few drunks barged into the room. He threw it out a window and returned for the jumpsuit even though he was severely injured. He was dedicated and extremely grateful. I watched him for a while, not knowing that my affections towards him had blossomed into love. Yugao and Hana stepped up next. Yugao spoke. I used to hate Naruto, and I only saw him as the demon that murdered my family. But when he saved me and Hana from being raped by a bunch of failed Anbu, my views changed. He had knocked down a few with a trash can lid before shoving a kunai into the leader's area. The men in the room noticeably winced until Hana continued with the story. He had stabbed the leader in the groin. He began to walk off until he noticed an explosive tag was coming at us. He selflessly jumped in the way of the tag. He injured himself to save our lives, when we always ignored his. Tenten winced again, not knowing that Naruto had risked his life. The next to speak was Haku. Tenten, I may have just met Naruto, but out of all the human beings I have met in my entire life, Naruto has the purest of hearts. For the past week, Kyuubi and I, note everyone in the council had to be told about Kyuubi, have basically thrown ourselves at him. He always declined and his answer was always the same. I hold too much respect for women to do that outside of wedlock. That showed me how pure his heart was. My love for him only grew when I saw his scars. Tenten looked at her in confusion. Naruto-kun has a diagonal scar running across his chest. He has the Kyuubi's fox form carved onto his back. He even has had his arm chopped off several times. I have grown to love him for his pure heart and his resolve. Tenten looked down until her father spoke. So tell me, Tenten, why do you wish to marry Naruto? Why do you love him? Her father placed great emphasis on the love part. Tenten thought for a minute, knowing she did not love him. She only wished to marry him so she could be trained by Kushina Uzumaki. Man, did she feel shallow. The council looked as Tenten sat back down, satisfied that she had made the right choice. Now that that portion is over, we only need Naruto to sign the contracts. We also need to discuss the topic of Kyuubi. Sarutobi looked around to find that the Kyuubi was not in the room. Well shit. With Naruto. Naruto did not know what to do. He had just found out that his mother was alive, that she was in a coma for the past 12 years. Then he is offered Kishi's hand in marriage. He would have agreed to it that night. But then the council as well as several jonin had set up several marriage contracts. He knew absolutely nothing on how kitsunes view partnership. So he was currently sitting on the fourth's head. The same question running through his mind. What should I do? He sat there for a while pondering everything that had happened so far. A new bloodline, his mother is alive. Kishi along with 8 other girls offer their hand in marriage. He was about to get up to continue his walk until he sensed. Sensed? Since when is he able to sense anything outside of his natural danger sense? He turned around to see the concerned face of his mother. Naruto, sweetie, what's wrong? Kushina was worried about her child. She saw him walk right out of the council room when the contracts with several girls who dearly loved him were made open. Any other guy would have been running around town like a maniac. So why did Naruto seem conflicted? Naruto stared at his mother for a few minutes until he tilted his head in a way that told her to sit down. Kushina complied and sat next to her only child. They sat there for a few minutes until Naruto broke the silence. I don't know what to do. Kushina stared at her child, wondering what he meant. Before the council meeting, when we were sent to the other room, Kyuubi-chan opened a portal to the Kitsune realm. She brought me there to ask if I would marry her. Kushina was stunned. The Kyuubi no Kitsune had asked for her son's hand in marriage. Naruto, why is that a bad thing? If she asked to marry you, surely it means she. Kushina was cut off when Naruto spoke again. That's not it. The biggest reason was from that council meeting. Kushina quieted. There were 8 marriage contracts set up, right after I had been asked by Kyuubi to marry her. And all the girls who set up the contracts love me. I don't know what to do. I have no idea if kitsunes allow harems, or if they will tolerate me being married to a human. Plus, if a harem is not allowed, then I am essentially hurting all of those girls who have their hearts set on me. It's like I can't win. Kushina now understood what Naruto meant. He cared for each and every one of the girls, maybe not to the extent of love. But he cared about them enough to not want to hurt them. Kushina sighed, not knowing what to do. Naruto was too conflicted and Kushina was too watchful of her son to notice that someone had been watching them the whole time. With Kishi. Kishi had tears in her eyes. While she was no longer sealed within Naruto, she was still connected to him. She read his thoughts. She was both happy and upset. She was happy that Naruto was thinking about her over himself, but she was upset that the conflict in him was causing him such pain. She stood up. She had fully decided that there was no human, kitsune, or any other being in the whole world that could ever compare themselves to Naruto. She walked out of the bush she was hiding behind and walked up to the conflicted blonde. Back with Naruto. Naruto was sitting there, still confused about Kishi-chan, the marriage contracts, his new bloodline. He continued to sit there with his mother next to him until he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned around to stare into the beautiful amber eyes of Kishi until he felt a pair of warm lips touch his own. He sat there shocked until Kishi pulled her lips away. He tried to speak, but Kishi spoke first. Naruto-kun, I gave you the choice of whether you would accept my hand in marriage. I knew the council would pull something like this. Your reaction would have told me if I had made the right choice in a mate. Naruto-kun, there is not a man or demon who I could ever love as much as I love you. Kishi pressed her lips to Naruto's again. Kushina sat to the side giggling, yet watchful. Kishi kept on kissing Naruto until he pushed her off of him. Kishi-chan, but what ABOMPH? His argument was stopped by Kishi locking lips with him again. She was much more passionate. Her moaning into his mouth was clear proof of that. They separated again with a trail of saliva connecting their mouths. Naruto, a kitsune law states that when a kitsune has chosen their mate, they can set terms that they find necessary. This can be challenged, but I know that we will make their challenges against our terms moot. Kishi got off of Naruto and began walking back to the council chambers before she turned around back to Naruto. So what is your answer? Naruto was about to reply, good. She began walking back, leaving a confused Naruto and a giggling Kushina. Naruto had no idea what happened. How did she know what I was going to say? He let those thoughts plague his mind for a bit until his mother let out a full-blown laugh. He stared at her for a moment before laughing himself. After a few minutes of laughing, they got up and started back to the council chamber, knowing that it was about to get more interesting in Konoha. Back in the council chambers, the council was shaking with fear. Not only did Kushina Uzumaki slaughter almost the entire council, but the Kyuubi no Kitsune was nowhere in sight. They thought that the Kyuubi would seek vengeance on Konoha for its years of imprisonment. Just as they were about to run out of the office and start screaming for their lives, the doors opened to reveal the Kyuubi. She walked up to the Sandaime and whispered something in his ear. No one could hear what she said. Not even the Inuzukas could hear what she said. But they knew that whatever she said made the Sandaime happy. If the smirk was anything to go by. Kyuubi stepped back and put on a grin before Sarutobi spoke up. It would appear that Naruto has made his decision in regards to the CRA. He has agreed to accepting the marriage contracts. The girls were smirking and jumping for joy. However, the girls stopped their gleeful routine and the counselors turned to the aged Hokage. He will only marry up to a point of 10 wives, which means he only has one spot open now. The counselors were confused. The one to voice the question that everyone had was the Haruno head. Lord Hokage, only 8 contracts were made. Who is the 9th individual? The Hokage smirked. The 9th individual is the Kyuubi. Before the council meeting began, she brought Naruto to the Kitsune realm after she cast a genjutsu over the room so no one would know. In Kitsune terms, it seems that when they tell you their name, then you are officially their mate. Kyuubi told only Naruto her name. He will officially be inaugurated as her mate tonight when they return to the Kitsune realm. But beside the point, Naruto now only has one spot open for his harem. Naruto will be here in a few minutes to sign the contracts. Besides the signing of the contracts and the final pieces of paperwork, this meeting is adjourned. All of the girls/women who had been placed in Naruto's harem were ecstatic. They were going to be married to the man they loved. They were talking about future plans when the door opened to reveal a giggling Kushina and a blushing Naruto. All the girls looked to Kushina and then to Naruto only to see him blush even more when they looked at him. Kushina walked over to the girls. I just thought it would be fun to tease him on the possibilities of a harem. Naruto blushed tomato red before he decided to sit down and start signing the contracts. Time skip, 3 hours later. Naruto was currently reading through the final contract. This was the contract that stated that Hana Inuzuka, Haku Momochi, Hinata Hyuga, Anko Mitarashi, Kurinai Yuhi, Yugao Yuzuki, Suzuri Uchiha, Aya Michiraku, Kisi Kitsune, and one more person to be added at a later date, were officially betrothed to Naruto Uzumaki. He read the contract, read it a few more times before he signed the paper in blood. The contract would be placed in the Uzumaki Namikaze compound and would be kept under lock and key. He was about to fall asleep when Kisi tapped him on the shoulder. He turned around to look into her amber eyes. It's time. Naruto immediately woke up knowing that the fact of him being married to Kisi-chan or not was about to be decided. She brought him to a closet where she performed the same hand seals from before. She opened the closet door and dragged Naruto in, where he was met with the same rush as before. He opened his eyes when the rush stopped to see that he was in fact in the Kitsune realm. The main difference was that there seemed to be trees growing out of the waterfall in a way that looked like paths. He did not ponder this for long because Kisi dragged him back to the top of the spiral. The spiral seemed to glow as they went up to the stairs until they reached the top. When they got to the top, Naruto noticed that the branches that were growing out of the waterfall were arranged in a way similar to a mass council room. Before he was able to question the reasons to this arrangement, Kisi flared her chakra as she slammed her palms in the middle of the pedestal that held them. The moment she began pouring her chakra in, a seal showed itself on the ground. The seal flared white for a minute before she stood up. I, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, have chosen a mate. I call forth the council and clan to discuss my terms. Not even a moment after she finished did places above the roots growing out of the waterfall open in the shape of an arch. Not even a second after did a large amount of foxes start running out. The foxes varied from white to red, some were even dull lavender. They ran to the branches that were directly in front of the arch. They gathered in an organized group before they sat down. Naruto could now see that each one was about the size of a horse. He was about to say something before the foxes began to change. Their fur receded until it only covered their head, ears, and tails. He noticed that they all held an aura of strength and superiority, yet they did not seem arrogant in their power. He saw that not one of them was the same. In fact, each had unique traits that set them apart. They all wore silk kimonos with fox designs in the stitching. They all finished their transformation when they sat down on their knees with their tails falling beside them. Naruto then turned around when he heard a mass patting of feet to see a multicolored mass heading straight for the spiral before stopping. They went through the same process that the others had gone through. They all looked to be low-class kitsune. He turned around to look at who he assumed was the Kitsune Council to begin. He stood there until a wide arch in the waterfall opened to create a doorway. Out of the doorway stepped two imposing figures. One was a man with long silver hair with a proud disposition. He wore a white battle kimono with red fox designs in the fabric. He wore what appeared to be silver samurai shoulder pads with a chest plate as well. At his side was a sword that seemed to glow in the moonlight. He was pale but not ghostly, and he had slit green eyes. Think Sephiroth with Sesshomaru's kimono and the Shodame's shoulder and chest armor. The other was a woman with crimson red hair that flowed down past her back. She wore a beautiful white kimono with flower designs on it. She carried a long staff on her back that was covered in intricate golden designs. She was pale, but still a darker shade than the male beside her. Her eyes were a purple color with a black slit. The two walked onto the platform created by the roots. They walked up to the front where two seats materialized out of the air. They each sat down. It remained quiet until the male stood up with a smile on his face. "Kyuubi, it has been too long, my child." Naruto was shocked. This man, the one who held an aura of power that would put the Sandaime to shame, was Kisi-chan's father. He stared at the man who seemed to smirk in his direction. He immediately grew nervous when those eyes looked into his own. He smirked after he had finished looking into Naruto's eyes. "Though I am curious as to what the terms you are speaking of are, daughter." Kisi immediately gulped. She walked up to the edge of the pedestal where she kneeled. "Honorable Council, you told me that due to my status as the next heir to the Kitsune clan that I would have to choose a mate to pass on my legacy. For the last 107 years I have never been able to fall in love with anyone. Until I was sealed inside of Naruto Uzumaki. I was sealed inside of him when Madara Uchiha." Naruto gritted his teeth at the name. "Used a summoning jutsu along with his eternal manjikyu to force me to attack Konoha. I had been sealed inside of Naruto, and his village hated him for it. I fell in love with him because no matter what the villagers did to him, he refused to break under their pressure." She spoke with conviction that impressed the entire council. "I have terms that I wish to make known due to circumstances surrounding my intended lover." The council immediately looked at Kisi with a calculating eye. Her father simply smirked. "Please state the conditions and circumstances surrounding your intended mate." Her father seemed calm, but one could easily see he was excited, for one reason or another. Kisi rose from her kneeling position. "Honorable Council, Father, and Mother. My intended mate is the only possessor of all four of the great Dōjutsu." The council was shocked. "I found a way to give him all four Dōjutsus. I felt I owed him at least that for how terrible his life has been." The council was shocked. She had found a way to give him all four Dōjutsus? How bad could his life have been for her to do something so drastic? "My child, would it be possible for us to see this boy's life?" Her father was curious on how badly his life had been. Kisi cringed. She did not want to reveal Naruto's life without his consent. She was going to comment until Naruto spoke. "Yes, she may reveal my past, but I do not wish for any of your pity." Kisi looked at Naruto, who turned to her and nodded his head. She sighed and began a set of hand seals. She slammed her palm on the ground. The waterfall began to shift, and it began to form a visual into Naruto's memories. The moment the memories began to play, the entire Kitsune population was disgusted. Humans would do such acts to their own kind? When the memories were finished, you could see that the council was clawing into their seats with their talons. The council began to shout its rage. How dare those fools! Not even the most despicable of demons treat their young so cruelly. The one to yell this was Kishi's mother. She seemed extremely angry in regards to what the humans did to her daughter's chosen. I agree. The one who spoke was a bulky male Kitsune elder who had a set of old war armor on. He carried a naginata on his back. The blade was encrusted with a jade Kitsune. The Kitsune himself was larger than Kishi-chan's father. He had jade green hair fashioned into a long ponytail. These humans tried to murder a child, a despicable act, even for the most heartless of demons. I say we go down there and slaughter those fools like the animals they are. This was met by many approvals from the council. No, the council looked at the blonde child to see him quivering in rage. None of you will go down there to hurt anyone. I may have been beaten into submission by the thrice-damned villagers, but I will not allow any of you to touch them. The council was shocked. A human had just defended a village that had done worse to him than they themselves did to their enemies. And besides, Naruto looked up with a noticeable amount of chakra running off of him. If you commit a total genocide, then you will be no better than they are. The council looked down at this. He was right. If they committed mass murder, they would be lowering themselves down to the humans' level. But one thing that perplexed them was why he had no scars. Excuse me, Naruto. The one who spoke was Kishi's mother. Why is it that you have no scars? The council looked to Naruto, who sighed. They saw him begin to remove his upper clothing. They were confused by this action until a shimmer displayed itself over his body. The council was disgusted. The child had more scars than the war hawk on the council did. All the Kitsune below them were already enraged by the humans when they saw his memories on the waterfall. When they saw the scars, they began to wonder why they did not wipe them out. The council stared at Naruto's scars until they noticed his eyes. All 4 of them. Kishi's father smirked. So that's how you gave him all 4 bloodlines. He must have already had them in his system. I'm assuming this involves those terms you were speaking of earlier. Kishi proceeded to explain everything that has happened up to that point. The council deliberated on what should be done. They finally came to a decision. Very well, Naruto Uzumaki. As of this moment, you are now married to the heiress, Kishi Kitsune. An official ceremony will be held. But before we officially inaugurate this ceremony, is there any of the Kitsune clan who wishes to object to this marriage? None of the Kitsune clan seemed to challenge the marriage. Just as the council was about to begin the official ceremony, someone spoke up. I object. The council turned towards the one who spoke and sneered. The one who spoke was considered the disgrace to the Kitsune family. He had committed more crimes in his life than they cared to remember. Kishi and Naruto turned around. Kishi noticeably shook with rage at the sight of the Kitsune. He was a tall Kitsune who wore a black sweeper coat. His pants were noticeably made out of the hide of some other demon, something considered despicable by Kitsune ethics. He had black hair that was pulled back. He had a pair of black combat boots. Like all the Kitsune that he had seen so far minus Kishi-chan, he carried a weapon. His weapon appeared to be a club, but it looked to be made out of bones. His face had a large slash mark across his left eye. His eyes were a different color. One was a dark purple, and the other was a sickly yellow. He also had a large scar running from the corner of his mouth to his left ear. His smirk showed his long fangs. But the thing that Naruto noticed was that this Kitsune was a black Kyuubi. The council grew incredibly impatient with this Kitsune. For what reason do you wish to challenge my daughter's marriage to this young man? Kishi-chan's father was not happy. Honorable Kitsune-sama, honorable council, my fellow Kitsunes, why should we allow the marriage between the heiress and a human? How do we know that the human will only use her to breed his race more soldiers that would be destructive to our kind? Besides, he is already betrothed to marry 8 other women. Why should the heiress be thrown in? I believe that I would make a... Silence! The black kitsune's rant was cut off by a mauve-furred kitsune elder with black tips. He was wearing a black kimono with white fox designs. The kitsune had a large broadsword on his back. The blade itself was emanating a dark aura. The kitsune elder spoke, "I will not hear another word otaku, corruption. You have shown all of us that you are incapable of being a proper mate. This will be the 7th time you have argued against a female kitsune's choice of a mate, and every time you challenge the chosen for the girl's hand in marriage. You then kill the chosen, mate with the vixen, and then once you feel she has no more use, you then kill her. Due to kitsune law, we cannot interfere with that, but I refuse to allow you to do this again." The elder was extremely angry. He absolutely despised the corrupted kitsune. "But Lord Ankaku, darkness. Kitsune law states that we are allowed to challenge for the vixen's hand in marriage. I merely thought that I would make a much better choice for them, and I killed the vixens because they dissatisfied me." All the vixens were shaking in rage. How dare that bastard? "And as it is my right to ask for this challenge," he looked up to the pedestal right into Naruto's 4 eyes. "I challenge Naruto Uzumaki for Kyuubi's hand in marriage." Kisi gripped his hand tightly. Naruto looked at her and asked, "What would happen if I refused the challenge?" Kisi looked at Naruto. She then looked down. "If you refuse the challenge, then I am automatically married to him." Naruto understood and looked back to Otaku. "Otaku, I accept your challenge." Naruto began walking down the spiral, thinking. He knew that this kitsune was equal in power to Kisi-chan. And the fact that he was a black kitsune brought up something that Suzuri said. She said that the Shodame fought against Madara and a black Kyuubi. He wondered if this was the same kitsune. He did not have time to ponder this, for almost as soon as he began to walk down, he was walking across the stepping stones that led to the spiral. He looked to see the gold and purple eyes of Otaku as he brought out his bone club, which was covered in blood. "You know, human, this club has killed 6 chosen kitsune, but it has never tasted the blood of a human chosen before. Plus, it has never tasted the blood of one who possess all 4 great Dōjutsu. I can't think of a better opponent in the form of a human." Otaku was getting testy, but he wanted to enjoy this as much as he could. "I will not allow you to do to Kisi-chan what you have done to all the other vixens who you forced yourself upon. I understand this is a fight to the death. I intend to end you for your sins, Otaku." Otaku only smirked as Naruto placed his hands in a seal. His eyes were closed and chakra was swirling around him. Not even a second later his eyes shot open, revealing that his Dōjutsu had their first stage fully active. Otaku then placed his hands in the serpent seal where a black chakra swirled around him. He also closed his eyes, and not a moment later his eyes shot open to reveal they were glowing the same color as what the eyes were. The council stood as Kitsune-sama stepped onto the pedestal with his wife. The match between Naruto Uzumaki and Otaku Hajime. Not even a second after that did Naruto and Otaku launch themselves at each other, weapons drawn and eyes locked. The fight between the Sind Kyuubi and the gifted Chigon was about to begin. "I need summon ideas. I have decided that there will be a Rinnegan alliance contract with various summon classes. There will also be specific animals for Naruto's wives to summon via a special summon seal. The personal summons are currently as follows: Naruto Lizard, Anko Serpent, Hana Dog, Kisi Fox, Kurenai to be named, Haku to be named, Hinata to be named, Suzuri to be named, Yujito Cat, Yugao to be named, I am to be named. All personal summons will be created by Naruto's Rinnegan. Kyuubi can summon her own kind at will, so it was not mentioned. All personal summons will have a basic form of what animal they are, but there will be differences and alterations to make them more orientated for combat. I need suggestions for the personal summon for Kurenai, Haku, Hinata, Suzuri, Yugao, and Ayam. I will explain how Naruto will be able to summon all of these creatures at a later date. Kushina's sword will be called Kantsu, Abilities will be shown at a later date when she is training Naruto. Mizuoni will be able to consume the water in a person's body, courtesy of Awaken. It will also be capable of using any water-style jutsu. I will begin posting my unique Rinnegan summons on my profile once I finish drawing them. Please post any future suggestions in the poll section.